Though, here are our map bans. There are 7 maps in total in our pool. 4 will be removed, starting off with 2 bans immediately for DK and MIBR. James, carry us through it, please.
So firstly, right out of the gate, absolutely no surprise to see Cafe banned out by Dam1. Believe it or not, between Cafe and Bank, they have banned those 2 maps more than all the other maps in the pool combined, so very predictable from Dam1, fair enough. For MIBR, really credit I want to give to them for that Villa ban. It's a very, very strong map for Dam1, and that will lock that out. Of course, we can see following that, Dam1 are actually going to pick Chalet. If I can keep going for this one, that's such a good map for both teams. Like, this is really exciting. We can already see, just with the picks, this is going to be a heckin' good series.
Yeah, I mean, Chalet is a good map for both teams, and while we argue that Chalet is one of the more attacker-favorite maps, it's actually quite interesting how both teams have a really good defensive win rate on that map. MIBR wins 72% of their rounds, and DWG KIA wins 68% of the rounds on defense on Chalet. So that is interesting, but we also have Coastline coming in after. It's MIBR's pick. That is a good map for both, but it seems to be a better map for MIBR.
Yeah, the thing is with Coastline, MIBR are good domestically, but they're unproven internationally. I think that the idea here with Coastline from MIBR is they're looking at DWG KIA losing 7-2 to Team 1 in the November Major. That was the worst result that the Koreans had during that entire event. So MIBR is clearly targeting that weakness and hoping that they can get an in.
DK's happiness when they're just sitting together, chatting and laughing, it's something that breathes, fresh energy into this, because everybody's always super serious, because it is serious. It's the Invitational, but there's just the vibe that they give off is just so addictive. It really reminds everybody of the olden Norengo days with how things were. That vibe is something else. The final thoughts, our lobby's ready, and please go.
I mean, we know MIBR is an aggressive team. Both teams actually picked attack at all the options they could, so that shows that both teams are willing to put that aggression in. I'm really looking forward to it, so it's going to be an exciting game.
I will say MIBR have probably predicted this entire map video, which is a great sign for them. They'll come in with a lot of preparation, but Dam1, they are really good on all of these maps. If we go to that decider of Oregon, that is the exact place where DWG KIA were 1 bullet away from making a major final, and I have no doubt that they will push hard to win this map.
Another Brazilian team that DWG KIA goes up against, only one of them has been able to defeat them in their history in the past few months. So how does it go? It's all up to our casters. Take us through it. Let's get into game 2 matches about to begin. Team 1 versus Navi, DWG KIA versus MIBR. Thank you very much, James, and on to our casters. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Milos, and yes, we find ourselves here on the B stream. I'm Fluke, this is XR Troika.
Hello, how is everybody doing? Thrilled to be getting around a little bit of casting here, and of course, couldn't miss out on a LATAM game.
I mean, I tried to keep you away.
You did.
It's unstoppable. It's unstoppable to stop Ollie. No, it is an absolute pleasure. Obviously, Hap is still in quarantine, but he'll be out very soon. So today, we're going into this, but most importantly, we're going into this. DWG KIA, they've just come off the back of taking a win against Team 1, a very hotly anticipated, a very sort of excitable team, and that game was a great opener, but now they've got another Latin American team, and it's day 2. It's a very different energy on this day of the tournament.
It is. It's probably a good way to really start off the tournament, I think. You get a couple of LATAM teams out of the way and you can sort of prepare for that kind of a play style and then look to move on forward through the tournament, as it were. So for DWG KIA, it's a good opportunity, I think, for them to sort of get these teams out of the way. And obviously for MIBR, they didn't get to play yesterday. So everyone's really itching to see what MIBR are going to be able to bring. Obviously coming through the LATAM last chance qualifier, as it were. It was a bit touch and go as to whether they're even going to make it here.
I think that's it, is MIBR sort of scraped in, but it's also worth considering that it's the region that has had the best performance this year. It's the region that has taken pretty much every title without so much else as a breath or a look in on the finals from another region. They have more teams here than anybody else. The region that doesn't is APAC, and the APAC team that's been able to keep biting back and sort of waving that flag of how come we don't have the same grandstand as the rest of these regions is the region that is currently undefeated. It's the only team, it's the only space of players that hasn't suffered a loss compared to Latin America, EU, and NA, which has obviously had much more mixed performances.
You're starting to sound like Dev.
I mean, while he's here,
Dev was insufferable yesterday.
Listen, I know it's just one of them things, right?
Never do that again. We're going to throw ourselves on into the first map here. This is, of course, a best of 3. Look at the state of that social vote, Luke. DWG KIA, 84%. Oh, honestly, I'm going to cough it, right? I'm going to admit now, I didn't predict MIBR in this one. I've seen the maps come in, and I had a moment of doubt. As soon as I saw the map, I had a moment of doubt because I was like, you know what? I know MIBR are good. I know that they can play a Chalet. I know they can get around this map. I am starting to doubt my prediction. I'm going to stick. And obviously, the social vote.
I mean, it's done.
Agrees. Oh, it's locked in stone. It gets carved in stone every night at midnight.
Yeah.
There's a ceremony and everything for the.
Unless it's Demo who does every single one wrong.
yeah. It's
A flawless failure of prediction with Demo. It's a good removal, Lion. If we hark our minds back to the game that happened yesterday, Team 1 sort of tried to play with the Lion, had no go with it, but Valkyrie was one of the free options. Valkyrie was an operator that caused so many problems for Team 1. It is lessons learned, and if anything, okay, maybe it's just lessons that everyone knew and Team 1 forgot, and because of that, because of them taking a swing and it quite missing, MIBR has gone back to what they know. As it was pointed out on the desk, the second map is Coastline. It might not be the best MIBR map, but it is, out of those remaining pools, the worst DWG KIA map, and sometimes you've just got to push those, you know, more comfortable bets.
I think that everybody forgot about Valkyrie yesterday. We saw so much Valk play. It was I was expecting Valk to be permabanned like Valk always is. And it just wasn't the case. Valk was available. Obviously, in this game, a little bit different. And the bans, you could say they're a little bit wobbly. We've got a Twitch in there. We've got a Lion in there. There's full Heart Breach available here. You've got a lot of nades available. There's nothing really that's been pinched and pressured too much that we regularly speak about. So to see the attacker lineup being so free, it would again lend itself to this mindset and this idea that Chalet is a good map for the attackers. They've got attackers on this map now have got no excuses.
None at all. Now, obviously, if we're going to talk funky bans, the one that was removed in the showdown yesterday was Frost as a selection because they wanted a bit of energy on the approach and it didn't quite work. As we said, the Lion, it wasn't so much that DWG KIA were using it perfectly, but they had a good enough grasp that they could control the space play. And if that's what MIBR wants to play into on their defenses, it makes a lot of sense to remove that. Chalet is a mess of intel. It is so tough and tricky when you're on a defense. There's so many places to hide and drive a drone to just get a full read on not only where players are, but most importantly where they rotate. You look at that massive fireplace hall. It takes one well-placed drone and suddenly you've cut this map pretty much in half outside of the basement rotate and you have a full sight line across. So how is that going to grow into this? The Frost, as I said, was removed before. It's an instant pickup here, and no sight better than this. The quick hop-in that actually DWG KIA were the ones to punish down below.
Good to see the Rugerman on the Frost as well straight away. He was the highest rated player. I think he was MVP of day one. So that's always going to be something that's, you know, going into the back of your mind, as especially if MIBR just had to sort of sit back and watch yesterday unfold. DWG KIA, they've been in the mix, they've had a game, they've got themselves nice and warm, and they can come into this one relatively hot. On the approach, MIBR, they're going to be going for what seems to be the fairly standard trophy solar side clear, and they're going to have some Romans to deal with. Lukid shuts Yas down as the opening engagement will go in MIBR's favour. Lukid working ahead of the pack there, but with drones at his feet, he's able to pick up that entry.
Now, it's a bit of a rotate there. They obviously have some control. They've been able to take care of Yas, but to be fair, Yas wasn't the biggest impact yesterday. However, it's still this lead-in. It's still this early blood body, and I love the adaptation of the take here. MIBR, they've gone for, again, tradition. They're starting the approach on the far side of the map. They're going to see if they can get all of the control on the bit of the split before they try and take care of the shield on Piano. Why am I saying this is important if it's the standard? Because it's exactly what Team 1 didn't do. Team 1 tried to take the fight directly to the pillar player and straight onto Library and found no success when they went for their own approach. So it's good to see MIBR going for something a little bit more traditional, because if that is what bites back at DWG KIA, you need everything possible and every statistical advantage in your favour.
I think the one thing that I'd like to see from MIBR at this point is either fouls to make the rotation, or for a Maverick to go and just open up that back storage wall. That would really put a lot more pressure on site, because as it stands, everything's fairly one-dimensional at the moment. We've got Raps now going to challenge on in, no drone work being done, hit by the Goo Mine, hit by the Frost Mat, and he is down for the count. But it matters not, because Redux and Philippox come in with two really important kills there to drag that advantage back. Raps isn't going to get picked up. No one really minds at this moment, as there's still an advantage for MIBR.
Woogieman, he's holding with a little bit of solidity over the top. He's trying to retake, obviously, the mantle of the pressure here. They have been able to bite back when they're a man down before, but it's down to MIBR to capitalize on the fact that they can still swing that advantage. A slow creep, and now he's the only one left as Falls is able to take care of Coda. To spray, and the diffuser goes cold, but there's one above and there's one below. It's below that gets the opener here. MIBR with a lead in that we hear 200 feet away on the other side with headphones on. That's an energy they needed and one they've got to bring in.
I said I'm regretting my prediction, and I am going to double down on that fact. I am regretting my prediction at this point. It's been one round. That's all we've seen at this point. But MIBR look hot. Felipox, through the entirety of that round, spent it inside a garage, on drone, finger boosting here and there. He naded up the back of blue stairs, and he was just where he needed to be at the time he needed to be there. Sure, there was a little bit of lackluster droning. There was a moment of madness when Raps hopped himself in and just immediately succumbed to the Frostmat, which was just inevitable at that point. I think everybody knew just what was going to go on. We got a great view in the setup of those Frostmats going down, and when you're challenging onto that fireplace angle, you cannot afford to have your gun looking down at the floor in case there is a Frostmat there. So it really is something that needs to be pre-droned, but it really didn't come to many odds in the end. Opening attack for MIBR is going to start things off fairly strong. DWG KIA going to start to mix things up. Not going to double down and hit the bar again. Instead, they're going to go upstairs.
Okay, DWG KIA, false start. But to be fair, you're off to a pace yesterday, and yesterday MIBR were free to sit back and watch your game against their country compatriots to see exactly what they could try and piece apart. And here, we're back on Chalet. It's a good map, but it's a map that they have very recent ideas on how they think that they can take the fight to you. So, I guess, from this point, I'm curious to see what adaptations we get from DWG KIA. Obviously, we had this play on early window peaks for quite a lot, but there was never a single time out of the entirety of the showdown that it actually netted a kill. I like the growth into the alibi. I like the fact that we might be able to see some other sparks come through onto the aggression, but it's obviously seeing, again, what ticks, what clicks, and what they think they can put against MIBR, because for me, MIBR is playing with a full stack.
I think the pick up onto the alibi, it speaks of a little bit of aggression, doesn't it? It also speaks of a need of a deployable shield. The Frost did work pretty well in the previous round, and we could maybe have seen the Frost brought again, but with how much burn there is available for MIBR, I don't foresee these shields being too much of an issue. We've got Woogieman currently playing on Trophy. It's going to be information that's lacking as the Mute Jammers do just slow down the roll of the drones. Fowls is trying to gain a little bit of intel on that solar repel, conscious of the run out. With both the Rooney gates burnt, he's got a limited amount of time here to really make that play. And with the player still on the trophy stairs, it's going to be even more difficult to shift. Yas supporting from below on that alibi. It's going to make it even more difficult for anybody to try and rotate up. Although, saying that, he is going to actually make a little bit of a move as Redux gets himself onto the big window. Raps opens up with a big kill onto Rin. Second opener here for MIBR in 2 rounds. The kills start to fly, but so does a C4 from Woogieman, which will find its mark.
It's suddenly all starting to spark here as they're trying to dig their way through. Woogieman, he bites back against Redux, and now on a quad kill on Raps. He is not going to get the ace, but he doesn't need to. MIBR keep this ferocity up. 2 rounds, 2 threads, and to be honest, a little bit more of the LATAM that we kind of wanted to see at the start of this.
Just do it again. MIBR, just do that again, please, because that was exceptional stuff. The patience that they're showing here. DWG KIA, they're committing to locations, I think, Fluke. I think that's their biggest problem at this point, is they are over-committing to trying to hold on to these angles, and they're being a little bit too stubborn with it. MIBR are a little bit like a dog chasing their own tail at this point. They just want to get that tail at all costs, and they are going to get it at some point. When they get it, they're probably not going to know what to do with it, but as soon as those positions get taken, as soon as the player off trophy stairs is removed, Redux on the big rappel, you don't see players getting onto that big window as quickly. MIBR are moving at a rapid pace here, and I think the DWG KIA are just getting themselves really caught off guard. There's a little bit of doubt obviously creeping in now as well, as we see a return to the bomb site that we saw in round number 1. And we all remember exactly how this went. It was a round that was essentially won and lost out on the roam, with multiple kills coming in from that north side clear through Trophy and upstairs inside of Solar. Similar lineup being brought this time as to what was brought in round number 1.
seconds left.
You've really got to start asking questions of DWG KIA and just see, you know, what are you guys going to do differently here? What is going to be the difference maker?
It's a bit of a overhanging, I think, and that's the worry, because okay, it was a great game between DAM1 and Team 1, but it was a game of a lot of nerves. They're able to punish the mistakes that Team 1 were putting on. MIBR have come in cooked. They've come in with some energy that they don't have that first day nerves. There's already been wins and losses. The game is afoot. It's not an entirely cold start, regardless of whether it's their first game or not. And that is a very different energy, and it's an energy that they have applied so well over these opening 2 rounds. DWG KIA, this could be the first time they're really forced to sweat and start answering some questions themselves. Again, it's a very different SI to one we've ever had before. It's a very different major to one we've ever had before. A single best of 3 a day is a new experience, and it's one with a driving factor of if you don't get that first map, regardless of whether you win the series, you don't get the full amount of points.
I thought you were going to go with a single best of 3 a day keeps the doctor away, or something along those lines, but we're going to be full white flash currently. Shouldn't come under too much harm as we're still well and truly in the information gathering stage. Luka just hopping his drone into library there, playing on the Iana. Does have a nade left, so he's maybe going to try and nade out the player at the top of fireplace as we see the burn come through. Rin now should know that something is on its way, but chooses actually not to move. The nade is thrown well, but not well enough. Chunks Rin down, but it is keeping him alive. A drone's confirm that yes, it was only damage, and Philippox now trying to finish that job. Another ADS to catch the nade. It's going to leave Philippox in a little bit of a sticky spot. It was his last. 2 nades do remain on wraps, but this is a very expensive Jaeger that you're trying to get rid of at the moment, and we can just hear the ding of the ADS coming back online.
Now, a lot of pressure comes down onto Rin in this position. They're going to see if they can try and pinch out the players, and obviously we've talked about the synergy between where Rin is playing and how much control that gives you over the opposite staircase. It is one where you need the other to survive for as long as possible. Coated, they don't entirely require it, but as long as they're still standing, they shouldn't be able to get the free kill. There's the spray, there's the drop, and there's the revenge. Rin and Coated get the lock off, and that is why you have that synergy perfectly explained as I tried to explain it. But look at this. Hopped in. Falls has been able to find his way onto the site, however, he's diffuserless. That's still left outside. I don't think he expected to get where he's at, and Woogieman might not have a true idea either. As long as they stay standing and still, it's just waiting for the cover to come through. Raps gets the pickup. The spray comes through from Cat Sang. There's pings either side, but there it is. Unexpected. Falls, pops up, pops two. A great double take over the top. Now has it all the advantage to get the cover onto this diffuser. They're going to see if they can potentially swing around. They get aggro, they get the cover, they get the diffuser down. He's behind the half wall, but they're a bit concerned. Yas isn't though. Gets a free kill onto one, and it's just the verticality. But in a 2 versus 1, they can try and build themselves back up. Luke, he's going to hold off to the top of the staircase. Some explosives come round. A spray, a pre-fire, and a drop back to the hatch. Pulls back to some of the cover. The pings are there. The spray is there too. Perfectly played. More than enough time. DWG KIA with a big change.
I'm glad that Coated started to run to disable that diffuser, because that just seemed like he'd done all the job. He got stuck on the door and he was like, I didn't make it through the door, it'd be fine. Coated, get on your way, I've got 3 kills this round, you need to go and disable that diffuser, dude. Do something, please, and help me out here. A close round. MIBR, they got themselves deep behind enemy lines. Fouls with the hop-in. I think he was as surprised as anyone when he managed to stay there for as long as he did, and it was kind of explained when he didn't have the diffuser. He didn't want to take the diffuser into such a vulnerable location, but the push through bar stock was beautiful. He knew where the player at the bottom of those library stairs was, but he also knew that he needed to be getting the cover to get that plant down, and was conscious of the remaining player. A couple of flashy kills, but it wasn't enough. It all comes down in that round, in my opinion, Fluke, to Rin. He played it beautifully. The top of fireplace, he ate every single grenade. His ADSs came back online. The burn wasn't sufficient. The burn was good from MIBR, good enough to get the nades through, but it wasn't good enough to get the kill. They did it all, they did 90% of the damage. They just couldn't get that last 10% over the line, and then all of a sudden you get Reduct trying to just brute force his way through. There's a deployable shield there, he hasn't got any lifeline left. It was just a bit of a difficult round coordination-wise from MIBR, which is quite the contrast to what we saw in the opening couple of rounds.
Discovered the location of a bomb.
It's the first time we're seeing Kitchen. It's the first time we're seeing a little bit of a stretch to a slightly different site. And again, I think for me, this raises those points from MIBR is, what did they learn? What did they learn yesterday watching Team 1 on these approaches? Because the first 2 times they were able to demonstrate it, their homework was pretty pitch perfect. And to be fair there, I think they're able to get in a very good position, a bit unexpected. Fool's taking the double kill was so well played. He was able to slip by onto that supply chain on the backside of the site and then put some devastation down. Little gaps, little problems that we saw with DWG KIA yesterday that Team 1 weren't able to punish because, well, they were making these mistakes of their own. Here it seems like MIBR are a little bit sharper, a little bit more aggressive, and again, I hope that leads into something that gives us a little bit of a back and forth and a bite from the 2 teams. Or it could be the chance for DWG KIA to pull themselves level on this fourth round.
It's the second.
Fourth round, their second chance.
Second round.
Second round.
Number 4, I mean, obviously. At that point, it just goes without saying, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You see a little bit of a juggle here of utilities. A couple of late ADSs getting placed here by Written as the push has been discovered and found to be coming in through that typical solar side. Foul's going to be manning those solar windows again. Raps below just peeking into trophy. Lukid maybe looking to jump onto that rappel and work ahead of these drones. The drones are coming in now. The second time that we're going to see the gate burned. Lukid just going to try and drone himself in here. Typically the drone work for MIBR is very good. Katsang's now known, player on that big rappel. Really awesome challenge because all you got is a head. Redux, what are you doing? You can't just peek with your head. Fortunately, Lukid's there for the trade, but it's just a clean 1-for-1.
I'm curious about why they were drawing that much attention. They knew he was there. The C4 doesn't quite catch Lukid, but there's a body on the piano window as well. So Yas has to either take a fight or move away whilst taking a fight. Opens himself up an angle, almost gets opened in the meantime. Filippo's trying to get the guess, but there's a hot ping right on the player. This is what I said at the beginning. Drones on Chalet, they are such a nightmare. Just assume you're on drone at all times because chances are like that, you probably are. The plants, the plant pots, the beams, the barriers, that's a blow. And another double as it comes through. Filippo over the top is able to clear up around that big fight and fireplace, and well, that is a big body disadvantage now for DWG KIA, and it just gets worse. Woogieman, all that's left.
He's going to find himself 1, but he's got 3 more to grab here. It is going to be a little bit difficult. 50 seconds left on the clock. Still a think boost in pocket and nades to boot. Lukid with 1 and Filippo, with 2. Woogieman, how much intel does he have? Catches out the Iana clone. There's potential for a hatch drop coming in here as well. Just going to give himself an option of a rotate. Obviously got the call of Bar, but look at him. He's getting fired on all fronts. Triple threat crossfire there coming in, and it was realistically only ever going to be a matter of time inside of that round. Filippox with the hop in. The drone work there, as you mentioned, Fluke, it was beautiful. Yas entirely flat-footed in a multi-pest story camera, and he just gets hopped in on. The whole barricade's just been opened right next to him with the LMG. Like, how are you allowing Filippox to just hop himself in, pick up 2 for free? Oh, it just feels a little bit difficult at that point. I think information for the side of DWG KIA has to be lacking, and I don't think it's too much of a surprise at this point we see the tack pause.
Not at all. They are being pulled apart. And okay, let's put some context onto this. Chalet does lean more into attackers. Chalet's a really good attacker map right now.
And it does today.
I mean, it definitely does today as well. Obviously, you'll generally see a 40 split is common in most individual regions. Obviously, there is bits of difference across all the regions. We can't really get a true comparison in international siege and play, but still, that's a rough go of it. However, what we have to look at is how MIBR are bringing so much more energy on their approaches. As you said, flat-footed. It's this problem that DWG KIA have, which yesterday wasn't being punished because Team 1 couldn't quite get the same level of consistency that MIBR has brought really, really well. They've shown up, and they've shown up with this dedication of, we know that you've got to win, we're going to try and match that and take that away from you, because suddenly MIBR become a little bit spicier, a little bit more favorited in people's books, because they've not only been able to get a win, they've been able to get a win against a team that 2-0'd a tournament favorite.
That's the upshot here. I think MIBR, without a shadow of a doubt, come in as the air quotes weakest LATAM team.
Yeah.
And that's just based off the year that they've had. But you can't deny that there's something there. There's a spark there when they start storming through rounds like this. Now, it's early days. We've seen 5 rounds. There's a long way to go yet inside of this best of 3. We could end up going to all 3 maps and be sat here in 2 hours' time with an entirely, with it looking entirely different. but it's just good to see the way that they've started it. Very enthusiastic, and they've obviously wobbled DWG KIA enough to the point where they're thinking, right, it might be the attack, but you know, it might be MIBR on the attack, but we're probably going to be better off taking our time out here and just try to guarantee one more. We just need one more defensive round, and then we can start to worry about our own attacks.
Yeah, and that's it. And although I can say a 4-2 is kind of common, a 5-1, which MIBR look like they could get with just a little bit more adaptation, because again, it's worth highlighting the rounds that DWG KIA were able to take. MIBR, I think, for the first time, slowed down. They got into positions they didn't expect to be in at the same time as things going wrong elsewhere, and they had to have a bit of a retalk and a rethink. It almost came together. They got the diffuser down. They had themselves in that post-plant situation, and it was a 2 versus 2, 2 versus 3, but someone just happened to pop off.
Party on the stairs.
Oh, everyone's invited.
I don't think we were.
No.
We're not on the stairs.
Well, we're watching from above.
We're watching from afar, but the stairs have been, I think it was a bit of a point of criticism, honestly, for me, previously when we saw DWG KIA approach this site. I just felt like they dug in very deep. They're fully committed there. There's 3 ADSs, there's a deployable shield, there's Woogieman playing there on the mute, and you just wonder, is that the best use of everything that you've got to offer? It's now forcing you to bring Yas on the Wamai to have the discs to be able to deal with throwables coming in from elsewhere. Drone eventually will get got. Woogieman knows that it's likely he's going to be getting pressure from the window as well. Just gets a little bit of a peek off it and knows that it'd be wise not to give it another look.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Woogieman's role there is to survive. You want to be there for as long as possible. If you can take someone out in the meantime, here comes the burn. He knows the grenade's going to come, so he has to fight his way out of the door either way, and he's able to slip past. Gets himself just tucked in, avoids that grenade too, and goes back to try and take another fight. He's wasting so much time. The ADS has just kicked back into life. That's yours. Don't shoot that one, but you did, obviously, take care of that one too. And well, it's this juggle, it's this balance, it's fighting the ADSs and trying to not take care of the, you know, all the bits of utility that are working in your favor against the ones that aren't. But look again how much time he's wasted. More utility, more of it's caught, and Rin actually steps in, offers something. Filippo bites back from the splint onto the west main side. The window gets a bit of attention. There's a close swing, and there it is. Finally, Reduct is able to take care of one, shoots out all of the stuff that Woogieman was doing his best not to destroy whilst destroying drones.
Reduct bringing the Flores is a really nice little change there. It's in direct response to what's happening on those trophy stairs. That's where all the attention's been paid in this opening 2 minutes. Now, finally, that control has been gained. It's come at a cost. It's come at the cost of wraps, but he didn't have any nades left anyway, so it isn't too much of a worry. Now there's just a small part of dealing with these site players. You've still got players like Katsang dug in deep. We've got Coated hiding inside of the bathtub. It isn't going to be the easiest of executes here, and we can't really see what MIBR are shaping up for. Sure, we've got Reduct on the big window. He's done quite a few miles in this round. He's got himself all the way rotated outside. Fouls will shut Yas down. Katsang responds. Trading the kill 1-for-1 and leaving the diffuser cold on the ground. There's information for the defenders here as well, demonstrated by those yellow pings that are coming on in. Lukid now has to pick up the diffuser, but no one's droned out the bathtub. Coated, he's found himself one, gets traded out, 6 seconds left. It's a 1 versus 1. We got Katsang versus Lukid. No time to plant. Lukid, you've just got to try and hold something. Still, there is information here for DWG KIA. It's something they've been lacking all game long. Finally, they start to bring a little bit, and look at how it rewards them. Dangerously close.
I mean, that's it though, isn't it? It was only just the DWG KIA were able to take it out by a player hiding in a corner. You build from only justs, you turn them into, okay, just, and you turn that into, this is a well-played round, but still, you think of all the time that was wasted by Woogieman on Solarium Stairs. You think of if 10 seconds of that had been different, if one of those grenades had caught it, then that's an extra 10 seconds in that 1 versus 1. That's suddenly a very different fight and engagement that they're taking. It's all these precious moments that add up. That was the conversation they sort of had. How can they slow them down? They did. If they can pull it off one more time on a site that was, you know, that back and forth before, can this be them getting an even half? Can this be turning it back into a DWG KIA map?
Entirely possible. All bets are off at this point. 3-3 is well and truly on the cards. I think the problem with MIBR and their attacks, one of the big problems that we've seen, and it's been a consistent theme in rounds that they've either really struggled in or ended up losing, is the coordination of this burn. Yep, they're able to get the throwables in, they're able to get the flashbangs in, they're able to get the ADSs offline. What they're not able to do is then get the kill.
Yep.
And then we start to see nades coming in 25, 30 seconds after the fact, and all that happens is it just goes,
5 seconds left.
gets shot out midair because the ADS has come back online. If you're going to be trying to burn out this utility, you really have to be coordinating that use and coordinating that push and making sure that everyone's in position to get that nade in. Now, I know it's difficult because there's an expectation that you're going to actually get the kill. And when you don't, that's when you've got to be able to adapt and change. The Twitch ban could be coming in here a lot more than really meets the eye. Twitch is something that MIBR really aren't afraid to bring. They're really not afraid to run, especially on a map like Chalet. I know that Twitch sees a lot of use specifically on Chalet for that reason. Could be a little bit of a factor here because it does seem to be something MIBR are having a hard time with.
Back to the drawing board, back to the hold here on how we opened this up and how it was dismantled before. Yas was that early death. Yas was the player that got picked apart, had a ping there. The intel game we talked about being a little bit lackluster from DWG KIA. It netted a bit of shock onto Lukid, but he was aware of it. Pulled himself further back and got himself into a slightly new location. There is players that are applying some pressure and there is some concern on where Yas can go and why he can go there. He's able to get some solidity, the hop down, potentially rotate round. He's eyeing up several different locations. But with Filippo underneath, the chances of a fight happening unsurprised, well, I'm still saying it's in MIBR's favor right now.
MIBR are going to suffer the same way that they did previously, in that they're not going to open up that back storage and really force the players in sight to move around. That's become a very sort of in vogue and meta way of dealing with this site. Typically that player would be somebody like a Maverick below. In this case it's the Finker and Philippox, but he's still going to be in a good place at a good time and he can get the drone work done. Now we do see the deployable shield just get given up for free there by the Rotero. I like this sort of mid-round switch onto the Rotero that MIBR have done halfway through their attacks. It's causing DWG KIA a bit of a fluster. It's a way to get around the burn problem.
Well, it wasn't even just that. As soon as that Rotero came around and forced him off the shields, they then pushed the double door and took the fight onto the player onside pillar. Woogieman was there, able to refrag. Woogieman pulled himself back in and got a bit of revenge because they didn't account for them to be a third player up there. They thought it would just be two, and Coated is still able to keep this synergy above. It was a good play, but the surprise factor has bitten them back here. They still have vertical control. Filippo's going to have to make a little bit of noise as he creeps on the barbed wire, but we'll have to go for a burn and a burst here. It's an unfortunate situation. Straight past it with the adrenaline surge. Lukid takes a great fight on Coated. There's Yas biting back, can't get the second. Lukid with the double down the corridor, 30 seconds. 2 versus 2 in a fight on the door of the site. Pulls back, but they still have the second body. Woogieman is above, and that's a very important fight to win. Katsang swings wide, and there's the surprise. DWG KIA pull it back to a 3-3.
3-3 half, you've got to feel like that's a little bit of a missed opportunity from MIBR, particularly with the way that they started things off. DWG KIA responding really well, and I think despite the little changes and adaptations that we saw MIBR bring throughout their attacks, DWG KIA were ready for what that was going to look like and what that was going to be. Stubbornness to play in and around the site really started to pay a dividend. They played a little bit looser in that round as well. They weren't as hard committed to certain areas and certain locations. Instead, they were more happy to just take that fight, rotate the corridor, play in and around the bottom of library stairs. I think it was a really good round. Katsang particularly stood out there in that one for me.
DK, if you missed it, and to be fair, you might have missed it if you were watching the game yesterday, opened so quickly yesterday on their attacks. They pushed themselves onto the bar site and had the diffuser down without a single Team 1 player noticing. And one of the things that we talked about that works against how DWG KIA wanted to approach is this site is cellar. You do not see it too often because it's hefty, it's uncomfortable, and it's not really the gameplay that Chalet offers a lot of teams in the current meta. But what it did offer Team 1, again, lessons learned, was a moment, a breath. It was the one that DWG KIA struggled the most with. So again, why not lead in with a slow pace? Don't let DWG KIA get this sort of smash and aggression and give yourself something a little bit more controllable.
It's doable, isn't it? You know, you can go down to the basement, it's a doable site. I think where I worry and where I struggle mentally with it is knowing what sort of a defending team MIBR are.
Yes.
And this is 4 roamers, 1 support. Through and through. And you know, you've got to. You just look at the lineup, man. We've got Oryx, we've got Vigil. Like this is exactly what it is. So you've got to be careful with how much you leave those site players to do. Now in this case, it's obviously changed a little bit. There's 3 air quote support operators there. We've got the mute smoke combination. We've got the echo. So there's going to be an expectation that those players are going to be in and around the site. But when this happens and the site gets open so quickly, and all of a sudden there's not a great deal that's going to stop Coated from getting that plant down if sufficient pressure can be put onto players like Fowls. Already the roam game, it's going to have to start to work back, and with that garage wall open, it ain't going to be as easy to get back into site.
Now then, how can you try and crack the nut that you just could not yesterday? It was the only failure of DWG KIA's approach, but it was a failure, and you've always got to be aware of those changes. You've got to not just talk about how MIBR can learn how to attack, but DWG KIA, what can you take away from the drawing board of mistakes? How can you fix things, regardless of the fact that you're up against a different team? It's still growth. It's still you looking for a new team to try and play against. It starts at the top floor. It starts on the library side with a bit of an approach and an explore down below, and Reduct says, no entry for you, Rin. Cuts off the thinker, cuts off those boosts, and a big gun, big hands.
We can hear the logic bomb phone call ringing through, and players scurrying back down. Luka just taking advantage of Oryx's burst of speed to really get himself across the rotation quickly. With the hatch open, he might have a nice chance of a bit of a rotation here, and it wouldn't be beyond Luka for that to be something that he is considering at this point, I'm sure. I think despite the early progress in terms of getting the wall open, there hasn't been that much else from DWG KIA directly onto the site. Say that, and Yas has actually been able to shut Philippox down. Now, I think that was a through the hatch kill that he was able to get from those main stairs. Can now just send Iana's clone down to gather a little bit more info and just see exactly how the land lies down in that connector. We can see the skeleton key getting used above as well. Coastline just making sure that sufficient angles are open. I'm really worried here about this rotation, Luke. I think that the rotation from Luke could be on. It could be fairly significant. If he's able to hop himself up through the hatch, he could maybe even double up with Redux here. But that logic bomb phone call is going to come in. It's going to put a stop to all of that good work. Woogieman taking good advantage, finding the kill onto Redux as another will fly.
Now, Luka, they're going to see if they can get closer to the fight itself there on the plant, but look at only a handful of seconds. They don't know. The audio comes through, doesn't have a clean angle, and now we're in a post plant, and they can just slip right out that door. The smoke does get that final connection. One's gone deep, one's got locked off. Luka with a great swing puts it back into a 2 versus 1 around the backside of blue, and suddenly Luka, he opened it up with a big swing and a sprint, but now he's a man in a bit of a tricky situation between 2 big players. One's rotated round to the closest swing round. He's going to see if he can bait the first fight. He does, but it doesn't go his way. DWG KIA, while they show that thing that they did so well yesterday, is sometimes they'll lose that opener, but that does not stop them approaching that objective.
It's a really well-rounded attack from DWG KIA, I think. I love the introduction of the Dokkaebi. I think the Dokkaebi's fantastic, especially against MIBR and how they like to play. You're looking at a roam, you're looking at players that want to get themselves out there and then make a rotation back onto site after having some sort of an impact. Dokkaebi's perfect for that. If you're not going to play something like a Nomad, if you're not going to try and secure the flank, if you're going to aggressively take control of your flanks and go, well, if there's people out there, we're going to give them a bell. We're going to see what they're doing, and we're going to get them on the way back. Beautiful stuff. So I think that was something that, and initially it causes the panic, doesn't it? And it forces MIBR back down onto site maybe a little bit sooner than they would want to be. A lot of work got done on the book with the skeleton key as well. Coastline really made a mess of that main lobby floor. So much so that MIBR have gone, well, we tried to go downstairs. We tried to give ourselves a little bit of a moment to breathe. It didn't work out. We now need to go to the bar and kind of have another rethink.
Have a think, have a sit down, have a glass of water in the bar.
Water's good.
Delicious, everybody hydrated. And it helps you think, and it helps you sort of restructure in how you can do things. Now the split and the slip pass last time, as I said, was, suddenly DWG KIA is in the site and they've planted. It was something that Team 1 suffered. You have to treat them with some impression, and in the strangest way of putting it, you have to treat them like a Latin American team. And I mean that there is no region better at the minute of seeing an opportunity, seeing some open space, and having the bravery to just go for it. DWG KIA does that, and they do that so well that sometimes you have to sort of treat it like a home game, because they sure are. Reduct. He's playing around the big double window. He's going to go back for a late pick here, hoping that maybe he catches somebody unaware, but they've already since slipped past that. They're up on the wall, and Yas setting all the way to the roof. The swing into the pop. Nobody's taking the balcony side, although Katsang's looking about having a rethink. They're going for a bit of a structured take over the top.
And this is MIBR in a nutshell. Fouls on the site and nobody else anywhere to be seen. Everyone has just ran away and left fouls to do probably a large part of the setup, as well as try and hold on to things. Now the setup does extend beyond the sites. There will be things that have been done upstairs inside of the fireplace. For example, you can see walls reinforced inside of office. But ultimately the idea here is to hold and retake that office when required. Logic Bomb phone call coming in. Not enough to cause any significant disruption. We've got Katsang going to be holding onto the flank. He's on the new balcony window, just keeping his eye on through. Yas has actually already got himself into library here, and he's got pings to be working from. The drones have really started to come alive from DWG KIA in the information game as a whole. It was something that they really limped into at the start of the game, but have since gotten onto. A lot of angles being held here as the nades do start to come through. Yas is going to attempt to swing, but he's going to pay for it. Going to get dealt a ton of damage. Luca gets away scot-free, and there's almost a thought and a temptation for a full rotation there.
Wow, talking of Raps, he's going to try and find a little bit of, I guess, lack of comfort there. He's sort of surprised that there's nobody underneath, but the take is happening on multiple different stories, and it's put MIBR in a bit of a tricky situation. That intel gain is now in the favor of DWG KIA, but they also have that presence, that threat across so many different aspects of the map, where suddenly you'll just hear their bullets ricochet of pretty much every surface at the same time. Luca is suffering that too, and you can still see Raps is moving rapidly to just try and find some semblance of safety, but none is to be found. Another call, and a plant is being attempted, but the smoke played perfectly, pushes Coated back out the door. Whether that was just a reaction to the smoke or not, there's a reaction to a player, and there's Falls going for the swing. The smoke gets the lockdown on the planter. It's Rin and Reduct with one apiece, and Coated still on the floor. Woogieman has to do the bits, but with a player still down in a handful of seconds, they don't have the time truly to get the plant on the pickup. Woogieman has to cover from above, but the rotation and a take from Katsang, massively important, gives them a little bit more to work with. Doesn't truly have to look up because that's still locked down. It's the closed door, but it's one more. They get the plant off though, just too little too late it might be. A 1 versus 1, 2 stories. Woogieman above, and Filippo has to do what was done against them before. The retake, but the difference is Woogieman's pulled himself outside. He knows he doesn't have to overstretch. He knows he can play this with a little bit more caution. 20 seconds, it's still time to go for a bit of aggression here, but that is all on the mantle of Filippo. Takes the drop, realizes he doesn't truly know where the player is, so he's going to try and at least bait a fight early on. Is Woogieman too far away? He does drop just in time, and DWG KIA 5-3, 4 of them in a row.
How would you be feeling now if you were Fouls? Fouls has managed to stop that plank going down twice. He's found a kill with a Toxic Babe canister once. He's also grabbed himself a down. What is the rest of the team doing? Where is everybody? Felipox comes in at the last second, like he's just been hiding around the corner. Like, oh, well, like, what's going on? No wonder there's a tactical timeout being called here. That was such a close round. Again, DWG KIA, they're getting these rounds by the skin of their teeth. They aren't coming to them easy, let's be honest. We've seen 2 attacking rounds so far that have had plants in them, and Woogieman has been able to close it out in the end on both of those rounds. Both the times Woogieman's been one of the last players alive, both the times that DMR has hit its mark beautifully, and there's not really been much of an option other than to try and bait the diffuser out and see if you can get somebody's peak, you win a head-to-head gunfight. Always very difficult stuff to try and do, especially when you're going to be going up against something like that DMR where bang bang, 1-2 bullets, you're going to be out of the game over. So difficult round for MIBR in terms of they seem to do a lot of things right. They just did a couple of things really badly, and that was leaving Fouls on the site on his own for so long. It was a 3 versus 3, I believe, going into that. You've just got to ask for a little bit more, I think, out of the rest of the gang, because if they'd have been there, if they'd have been in a better position, if there'd have been a bit more upstairs control, maybe a retake of library on the cards, it could have ended very differently. Redux swing there, it's like, what are you doing? Like, you're always going to lose that engagement.
5-3 DWG KIA, and as I said, most of that momentum has now come in a row. It's time for them to see if they can, I guess, keep a little bit more of that pressure on and drive themselves home, because as I said, even when things start to go away from them, the great hold that was being done against that diffuser plant, they still were able to get it down. They were still able to sort of focus themselves and make sure that they could play around that objective. It was that part of them on their Villa play yesterday, their second map, where even when a lot was going against them, they kept a cool head, and a cool head leads to cool results most of the time. MIBR, they were able to get off to a great start here, and they've had their time out to try and slow some pace, bring it back into their favor. What is that missing link? What is stopping them? Because, you know, a lot of the times their play against that is almost perfect or good enough. There was the smoke as well on the attempt on the plant down, or the first time on the plant even, on the first attacking site down in Cellar, where it struck just a second too late. It got the player down, but if it had been on the other side of that, again, it could have been a very different round for them.
It's fine margins, and I think that's why MIBR are happy enough to go back down here. They've just had the TAC timeout. They're going to have been able to discuss exactly what they want to try and do going into the next couple of rounds that are coming up. DWG KIA is slowly but surely edging a little bit of a lead here. MIBR led by 2 rounds to kick things off, so it was always going to be a little bit of a fight back, and I think that the momentum hasn't really been on MIBR's side. It's the first time I see them get the opening kill in a long while, and Felipox is going to make it 2. DWG KIA just showing their head at windows and saying, I'm free, take me.
I mean, Felipox there, absolutely perfect. He is a player who, to be fair, has been able to show up and have these impact doubles. He's sitting on a 2 KD, but the whole team has generally been able to get into fights. It's just, he seems to be the best at getting into them and then not getting scraped or scathed by an instant trade or a refrag. His positioning, his playing into that awareness of they're aware, so let's keep leaning in. Let's keep trying to find these new angles and keep myself moving and aggressive. Lukin, he's up and uncontested in the power position we've talked about many a time. He's going to make sure he can survive for as long as possible, but Boogeyman is at least able to finally get some revenge for a player who's already taken 2 of his.
The garage entirely open to move through now. Boogeyman can start to make that approach. Strange to see them bring the Nomad this time as opposed to the Dokkaebi. I feel like the Dokkaebi has been working really well in terms of moving the players from MIBR around. Obviously, it's a very different sort of flank watch. This is much more passive. You sort of place the air jab, and you're still going to be conscious. You're still going to be listening for those going off in the distance, and you're still going to be trying to use them to corral these players around, but it isn't the same threat and the same sort of imposing doom of a Logic Bomb phone call.
Kasang is waiting patiently to see if he can put some pressure on. As I said, they play cool, and they wait for the other DWG KIA players to get into a position where they might be able to strike with a little bit more consistency. It's time to talk, time to think, but it's all time that ticks away and means that those pressure plays, where if you're looking at the back line of Fools, he's, as you said, been very good. The smoke canisters have been played perfectly. He's been great at rebuffing the plant attempts, so it might not be something that comes to as much success if they can just try and get a little bit of a bite a bit sooner. The pings come through. Luka has an idea that there's a player potentially popping through, but not that close. Katsang gets the bite on the first. There's the spray back, and they just get it locked off in the end. The drop and down comes through. A bit of a fight happens onto the site itself, and, well, it's coated, going for a pickup and a replacement. Boogeyman's waiting on the stairs, on the bottom of the door, going to see if he can swing round 2. It's down in the corridor, and, well, they're right behind you. Where are you being shot from? You're not entirely sure. 15 seconds, the burst round onto the back of the supply line, but it's MIBR to wrap it up.
MIBR didn't come up against any obstacle whatsoever in that round. DWG KIA died with 4 nades in pocket. There was still players on top of Fireplace. There was still utility that was being burned in those final few seconds. That was a really strange round to see, and I'm not sure what sort of caused it. What was the real root meaning of that round going so differently to the one previous? We saw DWG KIA confidently moving on through. They really aggressed themselves on into site. As soon as they had an understanding there was a big roam game, they were like, yo, we're going to get straight back into site. We're going to try and get some sort of a plank going down here and bait out this utility. And that's what they did in round number 8, and it was really good. Round number 9, there just seems to be stalling. There seems to be a very unsure call, and the biggest thing that we saw change was obviously in terms of operator. It was the Dokkaebi. I commented on it at the time, but MIBR seemed to be playing with a lot more conviction. They had that buddy system. They were playing nice and close together. Felipox opens up with a couple of really big kills, and that just takes the round by storm. So I think MIBR obviously must be feeling pretty good about that one. These are the 2 openers that we mentioned earlier there from Felipox. You can't teach that. No. You really can't, and you can't repeat it either, necessarily. No. It's a very much a right place at the right time, bit of a perfect storm situation.
So, we will be back in the game, just a momentary tech pause to get everything sorted for the players, 4-5, MIBR. They've been able to have a burst of momentum, and, well, I guess it's always the argument of is this fortunate or unfortunate timing for them. To be honest, I don't think either for either team. I think it's good to have a bit of a moment. I don't think this will break either of them. DK, they're happy to keep going. Things didn't quite connect, as he said. They died with a lot of utility in their pockets, and at this point, it's just a run to the end of the map to see who can keep that, I guess, lock off. DWG KIA, it is their map. They're only 1 round away from at least securing OT, and then 2 from securing this map itself and guaranteeing themselves a point from this playoff. MIBR, I mean, they're putting up a good fight, and they have still a lot of that fight left. They might be able to steal this map out of them and potentially try and bite for all 3 points, because following into Coastline afterwards, with how this game has gone, you definitely favor MIBR right now.
You've got to give them a little bit of a thought, haven't you? If they're able to achieve the same 3-3 split and we maybe go to an overtime, something of that nature, it really is sort of thrown up in the air then to, you know, you almost toss a coin, because MIBR have shown really good points and really strong points today throughout this game, as have DWG KIA, and both teams have equally made the same kind of mistakes. You know, it hasn't been anything horrendous, it's not been anything really bad, it's just been stuff like, you know, dying with a bit of utility here and there, not having as much coordination as you would like, and I think that last round was a good example of that. There's obviously a very different intention here. The Thermite's being brought, and that usually means that we're going to see some walls get open. Now the site is going to be downstairs in kitchen and dining, but typically you're going to hold it like you would hold top floor anyway. You're going to try and keep a good presence inside of office and bedroom. A lot of vertical already been opened up, and already you see the castle barricade get opened. An expensive exothermic charge, it's fair to say.
Yeah.
But it's one way of doing it.
I mean, the thing is, you look at where else those exothermics are going to go. If they're going to be doing a solarium take, then they're going to use the one on the solarium wall and lead into the site. And if they're going to be doing the box take, then it's going to be the one on the box wall. There's not really too many times where you go for a breach on both sides, especially when you're running with just exothermics, with Habana still on the board, with obviously Maverick still on the board. They've already set themselves up for the idea of we're going to do a singular take. So at that point, I think, okay, under that understanding, it's a bit of a handoff, and, well, what else do we have? Do we use a Gun 6 potentially in the pockets of the Iana? Where else could we pull from something to take care of that? We might need that Gun 6 for a little bit of pace later. At least they can put that exothermic on safe. A big rotation, or a big chance of one, is that current threat looming all the way on the ground floor. It's something that might pop up a little bit later on in the story to cause some drama, with a couple of the MIBR players giving themselves that stretch of Chalet and what it can offer on those rotations.
Katsang's going to get himself onto the bedroom rappel. As the Buck, he's going to be itching to get himself in upstairs and start to rip open a little bit of that floor and disrupt fouls on site. But it really will only be fouls on site. Felipox, back-to-back opening kills here. He was successful in round number 9 and 2 successful here in round number 10. Takes Coated down, and no longer... Well, no longer is the Thermite a thing. We're not actually going to see any breach. That's going to make attacking into kitchen even more difficult. It's likely going to be a single doorway push, or even at worst, a hatch drop push.
I think that's it at this point. Again, for how long, and I was talking about the control they need to have above. If they want to get the box open, then they've got to have the single on that side. But if you've just got them repelling on Solarium on the far side before you've even got your entrance onto the top floor, let alone the fireplace control, you need to get that box taken behind the dining table. Well, at that point, you're just sitting ducks, and that's the problem. DWG KIA, Reduct, is able to take care of Katsang. That's 2 down. Just from the fights and the approach, they've finally been able to get some boots inside as they're trying to find the fight here across Solarium, and Yas is able to get one. Rim with a pre-fire round onto Trophy. They're going for a very close take here on West Main, but to be honest, with only a handful of seconds, what else are you supposed to do? The grenades are cooked and attempted. No verticality. It's just going to be a deep dive, a C4 over the top. Doesn't quite net the results yet, but it's still sitting behind the table. Looks up, it's down, and so is this round for, I mean, DK, MIBR pull themselves even 5 apiece.
I really enjoyed the C4 that just got thrown onto the floor. There's attackers running past it at that point because it's just that late into the round. Oh, what a glorious mess from DWG KIA. It all started It all started with the exothermic on the castle barricade. You made a good argument for him, Fluke. I think you were trying to see the best.
Yeah.
But I think it all started there. Honestly, for me, there was a bit of unsurety from the off. Opening kill again. We know how deadly MIBR are when they get that opening engagement, as are many teams. Let's be honest, it's no unique statistic, but in this game, MIBR opening kill, bang, can't pick who you get onto the thermite, all of a sudden all bets are off. Now, it doesn't make the round unwinnable from there, but there was a panic and there was very much, what do we do now? What is our next step? I mean, you look at the lineup and you go, well, you've still got your bug, you've still got your thinker, you can still take hard and aggressive gunfights here if you want to. They just didn't want to. They didn't have sufficient information to clear out that top floor. The nades were being used super late. The nades could have been used to clear that top floor out right from the get-go, but they just weren't. And I think that the loss of the thermite was something that maybe wobbled them a little bit more than it should. Leveled up at 5 rounds apiece.
DWG KIA. Caution, and unfortunately that was punished. MIBR were able to swing out at the right time, and the way they sort of did it was, as I highlighted, they have these players a little bit deep, a little bit off the beaten path, that are happy to sort of take fights, and it doesn't stress the rest of the control. It's a 2-story hold, as I was pointing out there, and the take that they did was on the top story. There's a Gun 6 to pop a castle much quicker, and as I said, it's that immediacy that they could have offered themselves before, but didn't. But still, that caution is something where that loose player, that Philippox, is going to be able to show up when he's not being contested and when he has that freedom to sort of say, well, they're stuck there and I'm down here. How about we try and make this, I guess, hit heads? Katsang, he's going to get himself into the garage. He's going to see if he can try and start popping up some 2-story holes and holds. It's the takes that they're more familiar with. They're able to try and get control of the back of the hard walls. You're also able to dig yourself up underneath Solarium stairs. If you're good with a grenade, it could be a quicker way to remove a player that might have been buried there. But look at this. This is Philippox. This is the play we've seen him do well before. This is the play I talked about before, and this time, nobody's falling for it.
In a long time into the round, we're still not seeing an opening engagement as of yet, or at least an opening kill to come through. There's a much slower approach here from DWG KIA. I think they've recognised that early aggression, just showing themselves at doorways and windows isn't working out, and I say that, and all of a sudden the hop-in. Philippox 3 for 3 in the last 3 rounds. Is this going to be a double yet again? It very well could be, and there it is. The shot slam beautifully. Rin and Woogieman down. Flanks now fully exposed with the Nomad gone. Couple of nades gone in Rin, and of course the power of that weapon. Again, not an ideal start. Things are starting to fall apart here.
That's it. It's just been a little bit lackluster here. And MIBR, they've shown the energy they had at the beginning of this game. They're playing to this to win, and a bit of a scrappy fight there. Katsang gets pretty much everything but a death on his own side, but gets a death out of MIBR, and that's the most important part right now. It's 1, but it's a minute to see if you can find some more, and you're going to have to do it with a much more sheltered approach. They still obviously have the smoke canisters to try and, you know, a whiff of that for Katsang, and it's over. Code gets a smell, and he definitely doesn't like it. With that diffuser struggling these past couple of rounds, it's Yas with a grenade underneath to get a great take. We said they died with utility before. They've made sure that they can get a bit of a work of it here. Luca couldn't quite find the body through the hatch, but that's 2 for 2. Now it's just seeing if Katsang can get an approach here.
Pick it all away and watch it at this moment in time. Yas is going to find one on to Luca. It does give the advantage back here to DWG KIA. A lot of information available for Redux though. He does let one past Fouls, be able to shut Yas down. Hop in now going to be attempted. The exothermic charge is going to be placed. This is tight stuff with only 10 seconds left to go. Kota gets caught out there on the wolf orb. He knows that there's going to be a man inside of the piano when he makes his shots. Lands, finds himself 1, finds himself 2. The Fragmite coming in all senses of the word there. 2 beautiful kills to round things out. MIBR have let that one slip. DWG KIA, map point.
That's a lesson that DK have taught a lot of teams, is the round is never over until it's over. The frequency of them winning a round in the final 10 seconds, I mean, it's never a stat you rely on, but my God, is it a good trick to have in your bag of tricks. That confidence to sort of make these plays happen. The conversation there of, we need to play these players. We know where 2 of them are roughly. The call to swing around out of the little box there and get that final bedroom kill as well. I mean, it pushes them onto match point, and after how the previous 2 rounds had went, they needed a spark the same way they sort of desperately did in the first half, where they could not find a way to bite into MIBR's aggressive game. We're back in bar, we're back in a site that's gone either side and either way. Will this be MIBR's chance to push it to OT, or will DWG KIA secure themselves their map pick and a point?
3 versus 5, by the way.
Attackers have located a bomb.
That last round. That's the one that stings.
That's DWG KIA.
That's the one that stings.
Honestly, I'm very curious about their entry statistic because they, regardless of today or yesterday, quite often take these rounds 4 versus 5.
Yeah, it hasn't looked great, has it? But they've managed to pull it off. They've managed to get away with it in that previous round. Is that going to be the momentum and the drive that pushes them here towards this map point? Potentially. We've got 3 minutes to see if it is going to be here or if we are going to go to an overtime. Now, for all intents and purposes, they haven't looked great attacking into bar in previous rounds. We've seen lackluster use of nades. We've seen players dying with a lot of nades left, players unable to be shifted out of key positions, and almost a willingness to just hop into the site and start baiting stuff quite early. Now, I know that Fowls typically plays the site on his own, and it looks as though that's going to be what's happening here, as everybody else is, for all intents and purposes, in Narnia, but there's got to be a little bit more, because Fowls is more than capable of keeping you at bay unless you fully commit to that side push.
Lukid on the top of Fireplace, holding the mezzanine and seeing if he can just get some control over it and keep that cool, calm edge. It's a bit of an explosive drive towards the top of the stairs. As we said, this is kind of the standard approach, but that first one gets caught out. It's the job of Lukid to see if he can throw as many of those discs to stop that approach. And yes, with the hop in, there's holes underneath, sure, but he's got into a position now under the audio guys in cover where he might be able to try and swing a bit of a pinch push they've done before. Reduct is the difference. The maker that keeps a little bit more of a string of sight lines across the board there. Could go for the pressure on the window, could go for some of the support here. It starts to be burned. There's the hop in, there's the approach on the back of the window. First fight comes through. Katsang pulls back, blinded. Yas drives deep, fights the first fight, gets it. The second is no longer there, but it's the third fight that finds him. Lukid is able to get that revenge and almost gets his second. Katsang on the swing round on the double window. It's suddenly lighting up there. Reductor said he was there to fill a hole, and he does it perfectly. It's the way that DWG KIA punished MIBR in a similar circumstance before.
Katsang's still just looking to try and hold on to that angle as well, and it feels as though the moment for that has passed. Hops down and sees if he can make anything happen from the main door. Coated still knows that there's going to be a couple of players here, and as he jumps onto his drone, he's very susceptible to the C4, which Redux will oblige to beautifully. That's diffuser down cold, very unlikely to be recovered, especially given the positioning of the players of the 2 remaining DWG KIA. We got back up on the big window, back on this new balcony, as Katsang did go downstairs, but felt like, well, I'm probably going to have to go back up now and look to recover that diffuser, or even look to try and buddy up with Woogieman. But with Lukid still playing on Fireplace, it's going to be very difficult to try and shift him. That's going to be the first port of call. You can see Woogieman attempts the engagement. Redux gets himself into a little soiree as well, as the kill will come in. 19 seconds left. The diffuser still yet to be recovered. It's likely not going to come down to a plant, but instead a ton of kills.
Well, with one player off in kitchen, they're not going to be able to get anything here. They go for the supply line, can't get their confirmation, finds that player at least, but there's still one off in Narnia. Reduct gets himself a triple, it doesn't even matter. We're going OT.
It almost looked for a time as though we could have seen a similar round to previous, where we did actually see DWG KIA come out with the win despite a very narrow amount of time remaining, but it was the diffuser, wasn't it? It was the positioning, it was the fact that it was the classic throw the drone, get straight into the drone, get C4'd.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to throw the drone, you've got to bait the window, you've got to
I think that's
give
it.
A little bit of something, because Rita's just seen that and gone, oh, freebie is it? Thank you.
Because they know that there's pressure still in that environment as well. They know that it's a hot bit of property. They've lost their control at stopping exactly that. They don't have a player on the mezzanine because they lost that firefight. They don't have a player inside the library anymore because, well, they're able to win the first but lost the second and the follow-up. At that point, you know that there's pressure in that moment, because that's exactly what you're trying to crack. To just throw a drone in and assume the best isn't giving the respect to the play that LATAM does. If we have that conversation of you have to treat DWG KIA like a Latin American team sometimes, Damwon Kia, you got to treat a Latin American team like you treat a Latin American team. They are always going to try and swing into the space. They're always going to take an engagement. It's football. You see space and you run into it with the ball and try and get a goal. That is how they play. And that is exactly what keeps punishing Damwon Kia.
It's just essentially a flow diagram with, is there opportunity? Yes. And there's no option. You know, it's just yes every time. It's just yes. Everything's just yes. And are you going to get swung? Yes.
I mean, how many players have we seen now from Damwon Kia get caught on cams by a window?
Yes.
And exactly, and it's active firefights as well. It's not like that they're being caught by a Nook on the far side of the map or a Vigil. They're not being taken entirely by surprise. They have an idea of what they want to crack, but they're trusting a semblance of safety that you never really have when you're up against a team from Latin America. 6-6 OT. MIBR have been able to do what their country compatriots Team 1 could not and push Damwon Kia to the brink of a map. They still have a chance to take it, still have a chance to 2-0 and get some true revenge, but for now, this is definitely a massive step in.
And there's no real advantage here to start inside either, because both teams went 3-3, so it doesn't really bear any resemblance that MIBR are starting off in the defence, other than they have just been on the defence and Damwon Kia have just been on the attack. Opening kill going to come in here onto Raps. Losing your smoke early on, never ideal, but it is sometimes a hazard, sometimes something that does happen. Yas gets terribly unfortunate there. If he just holds on for a split second longer, he gets a chance at potentially a redux, and maybe another player that's getting a little bit too close to those windows, a little bit too aggressive and willing to peek. Halfway point now as we can hear the skeleton key starting to rip open a lot of the floor. Both layers getting opened and a ping onto the Mozzie. Katsang could try and cut him off here, potentially if a rotation comes through up Trophy, but looks more likely as though Felipox is going to go to a little bit further toward the middle.
A bit of a stretch in exploration now. They're going to see if they can try and do the same punishment they delivered before, but it's becoming tougher and tougher for Felipox. As we said, the stat of entries going away from them is rarer, generally in the engagements against Damwon Kia, but here they seem to have been able to snap up a couple of snappy shots, and that pushes them in a trickier position. Falls back, pulls away from the drone game that has revealed, hey, there's a freebie. Doesn't quite get it though, and that is a massive loss. Rin was entirely out in the open, and that's just one of those things that might come back to haunt them a little bit later on. Just past the minute marker now, all left, and it's a 5 versus 3. You do still have some big players, and it's not just Damwon Kia that can pull off these plays, but it's looking tougher and tougher for the remaining MIBR players.
Luke is really going to be feeling those missed shots onto Rin. Only chunked him down by half as well. That's like 1 or 2 bullets maybe hitting its mark. Felipox still out on that roam. Does have the C4, but this is going to get overwhelming very quickly. 30 seconds in a 5 versus 2. We haven't seen too many of these recently. MIBR were known for their 1vx's inside of the qualifiers, but this is a very different beast. Felipox is going to kick things off with one onto Katsang, but he is going to have to start and finish everything here if he is to hope to get away with this round. He's got a little bit of information, he's got the ping, but the plant's going to go down before he can do anything about that, and now the game is up. His location known. He's going to make the rotation up Library Stairs, bravely so, but this is just going to be into a firing line of Damwon Kia. They haven't even exited the site all too much. They know they don't need to hold from afar. Coated there to gather the information. The C4 to hit as well. This could be on here as he picks up the first 2, but doesn't account for Rin. You cannot check every corner, and that was one that went unchecked. Rin going to shut things down, and that's going to put Damwon Kia once again in the lead in the overtime.
You can see a bit of frustration there from Felipox, obviously, when things started to go away from them, because he knows that that could have been his team's chance to really wrap up this series, putting the pressure onto Chalet, bringing that momentum over to Coast. Again, regardless of how this map goes, I still think MIBR are going to have a really good time on Coast based on how they've played. If they can keep the energy up, regardless of whether they win or lose this map, I very much see us heading to that map 3. However, it's still frustrating. It's still those moments that sort of eat at you like, it's a little bit of a misship. We've just been able to take this site. We've just been able to put some pressure down on it, and suddenly things are starting to slip away from us. But there's still chance, there's still opportunity. It's still a reset, and as you said, it was through a PC the half. So it's not that we know MIBR can or can't attack. We know they can do both, and it's time for them to demonstrate. It might have been a little bit of time since we saw the last, but they're here to remind you they're still fighting.
That's all it is. It's just a bit of time since we've seen them attack. It's have they remembered the way?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm sure they've remembered the way. But we do tend to see some players on different sides maybe step up more or less depending on the half that they're on. I think for me, someone that's had a super quiet defender half is Redux. Really not been saying his name too much. He's not had that level of impact when you think to the sort of commitment that he was putting in on the attack. Now back on the attack, are we going to see a little bit of a resurgence maybe? Back on the Flores as opposed to the Zofia. Back looking to try and destroy those deployable shields and really look to assist that burn game that was something MIBR struggled with at the start of this map. So that's already a good sign. It shows that they're really developing through the fixture.
Now, this has been a bit of a back and forth. They were able to take it as they're open around in their attack at the very beginning of this game, MIBR, and I guess they're going to see if they can replicate that here now. Woogieman, he's in the power position. He played a little bit against Team 1 and a bit earlier today, and they might see if they can try and shut him out early. Katsang is the difference. He has gotten very close for a later renegade there onto the hop-through window, and, well, I mean, at least it goes up, and you can do it from a bit of a range. There's a bit of a reveal. The alibi comes through. The grenade is going to be bounced on the beam over the top. And it catches them. Perfectly played, and that's the danger of that position. There was nothing that could be done, and it's actually one of the complaints that we had when Team 1 were approaching this, is they didn't try that attack. They thought, well, we can't get around him, we can't get the shot, so instead just went for, well, nothing. There, a single grenade bounced off the beam, gets a perfect take, and MIBR have the perfect lead-in.
We've already spoken about how dangerous they can be with that opening kill, and now they have an opportunity to really just demonstrate that. Woogieman, one of the best performers here so far on DWG KIA inside of Chalet, and the MVP from yesterday. If you're going to take out anyone, you want to take out a big kill leader, although it is coming at quite a cost. Katsang maybe looking for a little bit of a rotation back in just to reactivate the gate. Can get himself into the bar storage if he requires, but Fowler's already getting the plant down. That renegade didn't go down. Katsang with the one tap. Excuse me, what's happening? The diffuser's going to be cold on the deck. That's going to be difficult to recover.
Katsang is calling things very fervently there. He made sure that the whole team knew what was happening, and he was in the right place at the right time to stop a train that nobody else could stop at that moment. There's going to be the Flores trying to force him into an uncomfortable situation. He goes past. They can't quite get the catch, though. There's nobody for the pickup. That was sort of a little bit wasted. There wasn't anybody to punish him instantly. Obviously, it was a Prisma that was only watching from the side. There's a bit of a jiggle peek, a slow approach. They know roughly where he is. He has a beam for safety, and he still has some semblance of support, but they're inside no longer. Katsang is doing everything to keep Minute blinded. He still sprays, goes for an escape. Can't quite get it with a pistol. One more down, and it's over the top. It's yes, and it's Katsang for the triple. One more round the supply. Can't find it. Lukin with a double to top onto the one he already had. There's 2 stories of danger in 30 seconds. He is everything to keep MIBR in this map right now. One's behind the bar, serving up nothing but trouble. He can't quite get the clean shot, and the glass is all dirty and muddy. The only thing he's seeing is slivers and sides, while the other player sits staunchly above. It's Yas and a trade, and DK just solidify their map.
Heartbreaking stuff there for MIBR. A trade and another 1 versus 1 potentially. It was a hard-fought round, but it was a round that they overcommitted to too quickly. Katsang went from hero to zero. Well, went from 0 to hero, sorry. He didn't do a lot inside of that game. He was nowhere near 12 kills at the start of that round, but he has fought so hard. Slippery play inside of that back storage as well. You've really got to give him a lot of credit for it.
We're going to a very quick break before we're back with Map 2, Coastline.
and welcome back. Thank you for bearing with us. We are back for MIBR versus DWG KIA. My name, Exotroika, joined here by Fluke.
Yo.
For any eagle-eyed viewers amongst you, if you did just catch us for a glimpse there, we have actually swapped sides. You're not going crazy. There's no mirrors involved.
No. Wait, were we on screen?
For briefly.
Oh, a little bit of a sneak peek. Yeah, we've changed sides. We're just keeping things fresh, you know, because, to be honest, DWG KIA at this point have to keep things fresh. If you missed the first map, let me tell you what happened. It was a Chalet, and it was a much better Chalet from the opponents against DWG KIA. Hello. Than it was yesterday. So yesterday, DWG KIA played a very good Chalet, and they played that very good Chalet against Team 1 and dispatched them. Today, MIBR came out swinging. They had learnt lessons from that game, and they showed up and really pushed them to the brink. It could have been their map. It wasn't. But the most important thing is, if they play the same way, Coastline is going to be so hard for DWG KIA.
It is. It was a close game. I mean, the scoreline represents that 8-6. By no means was this a one-sided affair. I think we may have potentially just got the players on the wrong way around.
Yeah, but
you get the gist. The logos are in the right place and the numbers are correct. But in terms of players, yeah, there's a little bit of a change there. Katsang was somebody that really stepped up toward the later part. Woodman consistent throughout, but all of that came at a cost for DWG KIA. None of these kills came easily, and everything was, traded. There was back and forth. There was no one that was head and shoulders above the rest that was getting kills essentially for free or for very little in terms of their own death contribution. So that was something that, both teams were going blow for blow and neck for, and now we just sort of change the pace entirely when we move into Coastline. You think about going from a Chalet into a Coast. It's two very different maps, and it's different ways that you're going to want to try and approach things. For MIBR, there's probably going to be a little bit of frustration here, and you can maybe see that demonstrated on their faces, maybe feeling like they could have done a little bit more over on Chalet, as it was a very, very close game. But the clutch factor was there for DWG KIA, and they proved that again, bringing that energy that we know them to have. Now they're going to feel pretty good heading on into Coast.
I think that was one of the statistics as well on that board is, as we said, the stats next to the players were correct. And as we go into the game, the stat that worries me quite a lot is that entry stat. DWG KIA just, for lack of a better way of putting it, they sucked at that entry game. They sucked yesterday and they sucked today. They keep dropping the ball, but it's this weird dichotomy as the famous Sandbox SI performance last year when they were under a different org name was that they were the best in the whole tournament at entry, but just got out of groups, and they couldn't quite find a way to solidify that. DWG KIA have the opposite effect. They keep losing this entry game, but then that moment when they're 4 versus 5, 3 versus 5, suddenly they start to click into life, and it's weird that pressure adds this extra element to their game.
How does that 3 versus 5 come through? How many times? How many times can you really rely on that? Because it wasn't just one opening kill they were losing. There was some rounds where I think Philippox in 2 rounds, 3 rounds was getting 2 opening kills, and it was going in as a 5 versus 3 in favor of MIBR. So really a disturbing statistic that you can't look to ride for very long. But as we head on now into Coastline, this is our second map in this best of 3 series, MIBR versus DWG KIA. DWG KIA coming into this one off the back of a win on Chalet, looking no doubt to take this 2-0. MIBR here for some redemption.
Okay, Coastline, it's not been a great place for DWG KIA. We can only really work on the sort of ideas of how have they played when they've played against Latin American teams and vice versa for MIBR. And in terms of DWG KIA, they sort of had a mixed record coming into this, and Coastline was some of the sort of biggest mix of that. It's been some of their biggest losses. It's been a victory against Furia, a loss versus Liquid. It's a back and forth, and it just hasn't always been something that they've been able to get a steady reliance on the same way they have with Chalet, which currently, I believe they're undefeated against Latin America teams. On here, I guess we'll see if they can start to try and bring some semblance of balance back, but as I said, I still think the pressure's on them. MIBR, the only pressure they have right now is against themselves. If they can match the performance they had on the previous map, I truly believe us heading to that 3rd map.
Coastline's a map that is regularly trotted out inside of the BR6. And it was a map that MIBR sort of leaned into at a time when they weren't firing on all cylinders, when they didn't have Philippox playing on the team due to injury. It was somewhere that they tried to go for a little bit of an easier time of things, because there's a little bit less reliance on certain things, and it can more often than not come down to big players stepping up. So I think it's the statistics are a slight bit skewed on that because of that fact, but it's still a relatively good map here for MIBR. The bans, not quite as strange as last time, but still erring on the side of Funky, Lion, Nomad are going to be the two that you really look toward. Mirror and the Valkyrie removed as a standard. Nobody really wanted to deal with that level of intel, and it forces a pick onto something a little bit differently. Now Lukid, I really like Lukid's playstyle on this map. He will play the Oryx, not afraid to use it.
No.
And this is really where I think MIBR come into their own with their style of defense. The one side player, the 4-3 guys out on the roam, it's something that does really work for him, and it does well on a map like Coastline.
I think that's it as well. You have the pace and the space you can play. It's so much is written with this map and Oryx. When he first started getting introduced, when he first started getting some play, it was only really on Coastline. And only really on Coastline and Bank you think that he can reach a true potential. Just because of the pace and the rotation and application of those hatches, they're in so many positions that they can truly try and deep dive and dig their way into and pull back. And Coastline is constant. You're never truly clear on Coastline. It doesn't matter. You can see one corner of the map all the way to the other. It's small, it's paper thin, it's a dangerous donut with a delicious hole of death in the middle, and all of it happens as a crisscross across it. Lukid though, he's the first that might be finding a fight here. They put some pressure onto the windows and Baux, but it's Damwon Kia. A steady approach. What I hope is some awareness that assume MIBR are watching.
And that's it. MIBR are positioned well enough at this point to sort of take command of each and every corner of the map and just work from there. We've got Philippox downstairs inside of office. There are going to be players looking to work in a little bit further ahead. It's going to be Lukid with the drop. Opens up the hatch potentially for later, and has given himself a little bit of a rotation as well in toward Billiards.
Well, there's a little bit of a flirt with danger. Operator outside, and I feel like that's going to be far from the last time we see that indicator this game. And far from the last time Damwon Kia see it too. Katsang's going for a steady approach here. Sees an idea, but it's Oryx and there's hatches. Whenever you've got an information, just assume that 10 seconds later it's out of date. The man can move. And this map, as I said, is small. Redux on the open door. Has some support and swing round possibility here. They've got themselves this net and extension all across the ground floor. There's nobody on the second story for now, and that's going to allow Damwon Kia to sort of start trying to set themselves up for a take right on the bar side. It's popping open the back. Full suffers a little bit from the charge above him, and, well, is lucky not to suffer more. There's some toes. There's more. There's the first kill. Katsang gets a bit of a freebie against such a power player on that site denial.
Yeah, you really don't want to be losing out on fouls, particularly as you enter the minute mark. It's just going to make things even more difficult. Redux with a chance here, though, to try and level things back. Lukid takes Yas, but Philippox will be downed in process. You can hear that LMG singing, and you've always got to be wondering where Lukid is. Now, the plant is being attempted here at the moment, and there's honestly nothing to stop that from going down. So Cody's going to get that down for free as the firefights rage on above. Rin with one onto Lukid. No chance of a flashy rotation. Now, this is going to be fairly lock it off from this point out for Damwon Kia.
Well, back up, but as one goes, one goes. The trade-off comes through, they lose the player that's above, they can't quite get the angle and the opening idea, thought somebody might be holding it, but at this point they've moved off. They've got to take the fight above. They cannot just leave that free territory, but look at the hole Damwon Kia have. If I'm going to compliment the fact that you can be very wide on this, they've made sure that they exemplify that. They have players all the way in office watching for this plant to keep some modicum of control over it, but at this point they can just move a bit closer because the round's over. MIBR, they're off to a little bit of a false start here, couldn't quite get the solidity that they wanted, and Damwon Kia, they saw a site, they took it.
That's the danger of playing the one-site player. if you're not in position to rotate back. And with the way that DWG KIA exposed inside of Hookah, they ripped open the floor, they had Hookah balcony nice and early on, and there was nothing that MIBR could do. They couldn't retake from above, they tried that, and they just got cut off at every single turn. This is where it starts to become a problem, because as nice as a roaming style as that is, and as much coordination as it takes as a team to be able to consistently pull that off with trust and support into fouls that site player, or whether it's going to be Raps or whoever it might be, it's always fouls, and then sometimes it's somebody else as well. But with that trust and that support that you're giving, if you can't make it back onto the site, if you can't retake vertical, if you can't get there and be an impact player, DWG KIA is slowly but surely reading into this, and if these plants just start getting quicker and quicker, they're going to get more and more confident as the rounds go on. It was great to see a plant go down so early on in a Coastline game.
Well, DWG KIA, they have a habit of starting their attacks with plants. So far, that's been a consistency, I believe, across both play days. They've made sure that the first time they go for a swing, yeah, they've been able to get themselves in and get a diffuser down. It's a stat that keeps them going. They're a really good objective-focused team, and they seem to make it work even when a lot is being pushed and pressured against them. Change of pace, we're heading over to Kitchen, the other ground floor site C. If there's a better site to see for MIBR here. They had themselves quite spread out on the ground, and I think handing over the verticality, sure, there was a player there early on, but they didn't try and hold on to it. They didn't try and stick to it, and that gave that verticality, which gave the first kill. Coastline, there's no real free territory. You almost have to try and keep as much hot as possible, and especially against a team like DK that, again, sees space, takes space.
See space, take space. It's exactly what you've got to do on Coast. You can't afford to be looking at trying to find nice little niche picks here and there. You've got to find that brute force, and especially when you've got a team that are going to be playing fairly aggressively, there needs to be somebody else there if you're going to try and challenge Reduct, because he is going to punish you for it. Coated there, just peeking with his head very kindly for Reduct to take it off. Does deal a little bit of damage, but loses the diffuser in quite a key location. We are going to see the Rotero drone come through, and that's going to remove one of the bulletproof cameras that's going to be played in sight. Still, it's a bit of a lackluster trade, I think it's fair to say.
Well, another Rotero is about to make its way around, but that one, it gets caught out. Falls is more than happy to watch this. He's in a power position, but Yas finally gets the kill onto Reduct, the revenge, as they're able to take that open. And they still need to try and recollect the diffuser at this point, but again, this is kind of what I wanted to see from MIBR. Don't forget about the other story. You can't really hand over the verticality on a map like this. All of the sites have some pressure that can come around, especially the ground floor ones, from somebody above. That Flores drone, that Rotero, is able to get that shield, the connector on the far side. They keep slipping these by the MIBR players, and while Rin goes down in the next engagement, they're trying to find their way in from the middle. As I said, that's a dangerous center to a donut, but with all the cross angles and fires that it opens it up, Rin is probably far from being picked up, but they're able to balance it back and technically make it a 3 versus 3.
Entering the final minute. Still a lot of work here to do for DWG KIA. They still haven't taken sufficient control vertically. They've still not really got a way into the site, and with Rin down on the other side, it doesn't give them that extra pair of eyes to hop into drones to really figure out what is going to be going on. That's solely going to be Coated, and you can see him frantically switching through POVs in the one singular drone. Raps is going to oblige and send Rin onto the cameras as well, although there may not be anything to really look at. 30 seconds left and the Toxic Babe canisters start to fly. The diffuser will be collected. Wigman takes Raps down, furthers the advantage.
The diffuser wasn't collected. They went to swing onto it and then decided not to, whether they wanted to see if they could just push the firefight itself and have it as a last ditch, 15 seconds, and they've still got to try and recollect it and go for the fight itself. Philippe Box, he's on the far side of nowhere trying to find his way back over, but with that diffuser cold, this puts him in a round-winning situation. They win the fight onside the site, but without anybody with that kit in pocket, all you do is hand a round over. What was that, DWG KIA?
I'm wondering if the diffuser was picked up and dropped like instantly, because the mechanics changed on it slightly, hasn't it? It's no longer like just run over it and pick it. You've got to press your action button, whatever you've bound that to actually be able to pick that up, and then you can still actually drop it again if you do mess it up. So, unfortunate one. I'm running short. We don't often see DWG KIA sort of flapping under that amount of time either. Usually they're pretty collected.
It's the first big mistake I think I've seen them, and it was a mistake, because as you called it, he went to pick it up, and yeah, he, I think, went to pick it up, but then he didn't. And whether it was a misplay, whether it was a miscommunication, either way, it was a mistake and a missed moment and just something that was their round that they've handed to MIBR. And okay, sometimes you get those windfalls. MIBR, build from it. Try and get something else behind it and see if you can punish those mistakes. I liked the growth. I liked the verticality. I want to see more of it. And I suppose we're gonna, as we find ourselves over on Penthouse now, they're not going to go back to Bar for now. They're going to see if they can stack themselves up, avoiding Hookah as a site.
Does seem like a strange choice to avoid going into Hookah Billiards. They were more than happy to go down to double bar to start things off, and you do defend in a somewhat similar way as we all do in any site of Siege. You know, typically you're going to pay as much attention to the vertical of the site, whether that's above or below. So a strange decision, I think, but maybe they're just looking to give us the full tour. Penthouse and Theatre, a site that has fallen into fashion since Coastline's rework or readjustment, maybe we should call it, a couple of months ago. Still, the biggest problem for me is going to be that big window. It's still as dangerous a threat as ever, but you can extend a little bit further in toward VIP. Given that VIP now has 2 exterior reinforceable walls, as opposed to the window that sat there previously, it becomes a little bit more appetizing for players to hang around in there. Now, it's only being held by a mute. Sometimes you maybe will bring a Cade to get that job done, but with Thatcher on the board, it really matters not.
DWG KIA go for themselves to the second story. They've got a player out on DJ Bauk, and they're going to see if they can get open the VIP wall. This is one of them new additions, one of them new plays and places that changed a little bit of the face of Coastline, but not enough. A slight bit of work, but not a major overhaul that otherwise had gone through some of the other places. There's the breach, there's the thatch, and there's 2 open walls now as both Selmas are able to pop through. Removes that charge and removes wraps. Woogieman's able to get that opening kill. They're able to take care of the Wamai. He is obviously a player. The longer he's alive, gets more dangerous. Coated. A bit of a swing and a dance round, and the Iana's trying to find a fight all the way down towards 90. And, well, there's a player there, but who will see who first? It's turning into a little bit of a dangerous game as more pillars of the structure start to fall and start to pull away.
Redux together, getting inside of the Yokai drones, just seeing if there's anything that he can reposition to. Give Raps something to keep an eye on for the time being. Katsang, upside down repel this time on the big window, not just blindly taking a look, as we saw Kota doing only a round ago. But with no real presence in the site, it isn't likely to yield any results. It's a site that you do play as a retake, and especially when you've got the level of information that MIBR are able to bring here with those Yokai drones, although a plant is going to be going down. Where's the Yokai drone? Where is this denial? Coated. He's going to get away with that one for free. Excuse me? Hopped himself out under the cover of Katsang. Katsang just says, you watch double door, I'm going to keep an eye on this diffuser.
I mean, what happened? It's this sort of signal, it's this red light that beams itself over. As you said, when you have an echo on the board, when you have all of this stuff, you at least have intel, and when that intel goes, you know what's happening, and suddenly it's just this echo left, but not for very long. DWG KIA, that is for my book twice they've been able to get into the site with just not enough resistance that comes through from MIBR. At that point, you're sort of thinking on that hold, how come they're not aware of this pressure? There wasn't really anything coming through from Projector. There wasn't really anything coming through from 90. You can have cross angles, and it's a bit of a lock offshore, but at least if you're not going to have the drone calling the intel, have someone dying and trying to fight back, or have someone underneath, which was entirely uncontested territories. The door of service and I believe definitely the door of Lamborghini was closed. It was free for you to be under that position.
Attackers need to locate.
It is strange because there's not enough. If you're going to play that way, you need to play with so much information that you know every single move that's going on in the site. You can't play that way and just be trying to work off sound or a whim and a prayer. It doesn't work. You know, that really isn't a viable strat. We're going to see it. We're going to see the billiards site. We're going to see Hookah Billiards now come through. No real surprise. Penthouse and Theatre went dreadfully, and the opportunistic nature that is DWG KIA at the moment is see a plant, take a plant, and they're more than happy to just do that. Realistically, Fleet, this could be 3 rounds to 0 right now. the kitchen site was a little bit of a mistake, and
yeah, it was a throw.
We've sort of called that, you know, we call it as you see it. That would have been another plant, it would have been another round, and Damwon KIA would have been even further ahead than they already are. So MIBR need to come up with something, they need to come up with something relatively quickly, because this approach of just leaving one player to deal with the site really isn't working. But it's an approach that, I mean, look at it, it's happening again right now, right? We've got Raps playing on the rotation inside of Cool Vibes. We do have a player on Vars, and we do have a player inside, so they are slowly but surely getting themselves a little bit more site-centric, but is it going to be enough?
I guess that's always the thing. Is enough here, and is it something where they've got to have that awareness? Falls is playing himself onto the Cool Vibes stairs, and obviously Hookah as a site is one where it still has some of that countenance, some of that play. The floor is never entirely safe, and once again we're sort of seeing this hold from MIBR where there is pockets of land that other teams have to fight for a very long period of time. Ready to pop around and get some sprays on is seemingly what MIBR are kind of hoping for. You can see a bit of a dance on Ecuador. There's consistent little wiggles around the top of Cool Vibes, but DK, they're keeping themselves at arm's length for now. They're happy to stretch out, make sure that they get a full taste of where everybody is before they go for the full fight.
Kota trying to brute force his way on in there. We can hear the ace charges going off. That's going to open up angles to the top of Cool Vibe stairs and Vars. There's still going to be the shield there, but it's removed anybody from playing there for the time being. Fouls. Switched over. He's on the FMG this time, not rocking the shotgun, so we can take some of these slightly longer range engagement. But that's a great nade from Yas. We haven't seen too many good nades coming out of Damwon KIA, but that is certainly one to remember. The plant's going down, Rin's upside down repel on that double window. This is a masterclass so far. Detected outside, so what? For Leapox, you have got so much to do, and everybody knows where you are. Katsang with the pre-fire to close things out. Damwon KIA looking terrifying here on Coastline.
It could be 4-0. It should be 4-0. And MIBR just looked lost. The main thing I said was, I think MIBR can have a good game on this if they keep what they had before. What they had before was so much intel clarity. It was something that played well. Think of all the times we said, expect MIBR to know where you are, Damwon KIA, because they consistently did. The hop out on free kills against Damwon KIA players. This time, they have no idea where the Koreans are, what they're setting up for. It is time and time again, 4 rounds in a row. It would have been a plant on a site, and suddenly, you know, everything's gone. But it's not just that. How many of these plants? There's still 4 players still standing on both teams. There's not confrontations happening before they have the site and the objective. What is this disconnect where on Chalet, MIBR, you love the scrap, you love the fight, you gotta refine that love right now, because the longer this goes on Coastline, the more worrying it gets.
It is terrifying. Especially when you put into context, MIBR 3rd place last year's Invitational. That's when things start to get really scary. So something has to be found, and it has to be found fairly quickly. I think the last time that MIBR will have played Coastline will only have been a couple of days ago, inside of the LATAM qualifier where they played against Black Dragons. And they were able to win, and they got a good couple of rounds there on the defense as well. I think it was fairly defend-decided for them, 5 rounds to 2. So they got 5 rounds on the defense, 2 rounds on the attack. They finished it out at a 7-4. So a fairly balanced game by all accounts, but still, they know how to deal with aggression. They know how to deal with quick plays and quick plants, but they're just not able to here. They're just giving up so much of the side control. And I think it's little plays like this that are happening in the early part of the round, right? We've got Thatcher being run consistently here by Woogie Man. We've got Coated on the ace. They're always getting those Selma charges out, and they're not even looking to try and, you know, get in through that as a breach necessarily. It's more as a method to move these players around and to force locations a little bit more from MIBR. That's certainly what we saw in the previous round. It's what we're seeing again here now, and it is very effective.
Okay, Damwon KIA, I mean, you're still angling yourself well, and it just seems like a pace, whereas I'm saying MIBR aren't really testing it. There's been so much free room and roam for them to be able to piece together. So many times they've got in entirely uncontested, or at best, one player has been the difference between the fight. And as you said, that's an MIBR habit. The single site player and the pressure that comes from elsewhere, but sometimes this is what you want. Those further away players lean in to these aggressive moments earlier, try and find the fights, try and make them piece together. Whether it was a problem before of not having enough intel, it's not a problem now. Reduct, he escapes with his life, but he gives them food for thought, forces Damwon Kia to be a bit uncomfortable, and makes them have to play a slightly different game.
Just run at them. At this point, you have to run at them. You have to try and make them scared because nothing else is really working. Woogieman takes Raps down, levels things out. 4 players apiece. Minute left to go, and the pace isn't in this round the same as it has been previously for Damwon Kia. There's still a real intent on droning out every nook and cranny of the site. Fouls is going to get a little bit more dangerous as the time ticks by as well. A Toxic Babe to cut off that sauna entrance, but still a bit of a lack of information as he doesn't really have everything that he needs here. Yas is going to be pushing in through Kitchen, and Coated going to look to try and just to complete that as a rotation and a breach that he's able to move on through. Another Toxic Babe canister to stem the flow, and only 30 seconds left to go. Lukid upstairs, a potential for a rotation here. He also has the hatch to play with, and Philippox will be the first to fall in this final 20. We've still got fouls dug in behind the sofa, and Reduct has made a rotation now to the backside of Bar. But with Woogieman coming in from behind, he's going to find himself a slew. Picks up 3, can he make it 4? No, Katsang beats him to it. DK slowly but surely taking a different approach there, and showing us that they are not just a one-trick pony here. They are not just a plant in the first minute. They can really thoroughly execute, and that was from a man down.
That's the game that they've been playing well, and to be honest, as I said, the pressure isn't on Damwon Kia right now. The pressure is on the fact that MIBR didn't step up to what Coastline needed to be from them, and you know, Damwon Kia, those first rounds with the sneaky plants, that was cool casual. That was running it. That was by the book. And there, when things start to get ripped out, when players start to get dropped and MIBR start to show up more, DK are going to sweat. And they can still play those sweat positions. I mean, let's be real, they're a lot of people's favorite team for this. They've come up throughout the year, but they are a terrifying force, and you expect to see their name in this tournament for a very long time. However, that doesn't mean you have to go with them in the approach, and MIBR know this because of the fantastic performance we had on Chalet from them.
4 rounds to 1. Attacker side of Coastline through and through. Kitchen going to be attempted again here, as this is a last-ditch attempt here for MIBR to come away with any semblance of a decent split. If they could get a 2-4 split, it might not be the end of the world for them. But as it stands, this ain't looking great, and I'm not sure how this one will end. Damwon Kia on the approach. Is it going to be a quick round? Is it going to be a slow round? It really does seem like a bit of a roll of the dice, and almost is the opportunity for them there. I think as the quick rounds have developed, MIBR have become a little bit more mindful of it, and it's caused Damwon Kia to take that slightly slower approach. See Coated hightailing it round to that service door along with a couple of his teammates, and we might be on for a quick one here. There's a drone that's going to go in and discover, yep, there's a little bit of utility to deal with. We've got a Banshee, but a Flores drone will see to the majority of that, and I think this one's going to be fairly explosive.
Well, stacked up and set up, and they've got themselves repelled, and again, this is potentially looking like one of their attempts to try and get the plant in. A bit of that sneaky aggression. Falls is that backline, but look at the position change he's had. It's minor. Instead of being on one side of the tomatoes, he's now on the other, and he's looking to see if he can long arm some smokes down towards that service entrance. They're trying to see if they can get some angle and idea, and it's otherwise not quite getting it together for now. Reduct is digging. He's just hoping for a bit of anything, really, and that's the problem. They're not getting anything from Damwon Kia. They're not quite getting a full sight and sight line onto any of the players. They're still stacked up on the top, and in MIBR, they're getting a little bit angsty.
From a round that looked like it was going to take place fairly quickly with the initial information that was gathered, there's something that spooked Damwon Kia in the process, and there's something that's just caused them to really take a little bit of a step back. Approaching the minute and 15 seconds left mark, and we still haven't seen an opening engagement. We can hear the Selma charges pinging off there in the distance, but where is that fight going to be? Reduct takes Rin down. By all accounts, they spent a lot of the round inside of those Rotero drones. A lot of that work has now been done, but you've got to rely on him for a gun at some point. Katsang might be looking for a bit of a quick approach here. He maybe knows that there's going to be somebody inside of security and potentially somebody behind this main desk. Where is the fight going to come from? Gives the game away, and Lukid ready and waiting with the swing. Katsang, he's going to need a little bit more than just a singular lifeline to make this happen. Redux picks up his second and looks as though he's on a bit of a tear. Now we see the Toxic Babe canister start to go through, and there's a juggle of the diffuser again. Oh no, where have we seen this before? Coated throws the Selma charge through as Woogieman finally grabs some sort of a response here.
Well, the response comes through. Katsang's playing a very dangerous game and ring around the roses. He hasn't been able to get anything secure, but the wider he swings, the more likely a player's going to swing back. 10 seconds and a pre-fire, but a drop down and a double-handed over the top. MIBR, they look pretty much everywhere secured for this round, and there it is. 4-2 on a split. It's good. Statistically, it's average, and that is a surprise, I think, because theoretically this should have been a 5-1, and now it's down for MIBR to pick up some pace and some pieces.
I think mentally that is needed for MIBR. They couldn't have afforded to go into that second half any other way. They finally managed to grab something back, and they deserve it. There was some very wobbly calls, I think, from DK inside of that round. The pre-fire onto the barrel in Kitchen was probably my favourite, because it wasn't just a quick tap fire. There was obviously a call that somebody was dug in deep behind that barrel, and the pre-fire was quite intense, but it really didn't come to anything at all. Now the pressure is firmly on. See an Amaru baited and 6 picked off as Fowles is going to head on to Flores. Redux.
Attackers have located a bomb.
Redux likes to play the Zafir here. We saw him play Flores previously on Chalet, but Zafir is a much more favoured choice, I believe, and with Philippok's willing to take up that role of hard breach, it seems to have freed Fowles up somewhat. Little micro adjustments. The rolls aren't as thick and fast here, and operators can be fairly fluid.
I'm curious to see what approach we get from MIBR here. And I guess I'm curious to see what defense we get from Damwon Kia too, because Damwon Kia, when they first started their defenses on Chalet yesterday, it wasn't fantastic. They were a bit too aggressive. They kept on being punished by the holds in the setup here, and I think we're sort of trying to see if we can get anything extra from them, or I guess if MIBR can punish what is quite a loose game. And you know, if there's potentially a build from this, if there's potentially MIBR getting a couple of freebies from loose Damwon Kia players in play, then maybe there will be a little bit more of a journey, maybe there'll be a little bit more of a destination for them if the game continues. If Damwon Kia can get some solidity and MIBR under more pressure, it might be a different story.
Look toward the kitchen for the first sight. There's already a hop in here happening as Philippox is going to be trying to really back himself up here. Coated going to be the first player to fall. We do see the revive come through. Philippox does have the diffuser. No intention of planting it just yet. Maybe waiting for that cover of smoke, but the site has been in the control of MIBR for a long old time now. Maybe Philippox has forgotten that that's what he's got in his hand, or potentially worried about that vertical and doesn't feel like he's being sufficiently covered, and he would be right. This was a rush and a push that has resulted in not a lot other than a cold diffuser on the ground, an overcommitment and a lack of holding.
Well, MIBR. Well, MIBR. 4-2, and I guess this was the question here of, are they going to be able to push this pressure and see if they can dig themselves a little bit further in? There's a spray, there's a drop over the top, there's a bit of a body back, and they're in a 3 versus 2. Katsang and Redux have both suffered a handful of damage, but it's otherwise not going to be the full throughout as of yet. There's a minute 25, there's time, and they're going to make sure that they open it. Katsang has that diffuser, they have that watch from the second story. It puts Falls and Redux in the tricky situation of trying to get a handle, trying to get a little bit of control back in. Time is what they have, but it slowly and steadily burns away, and that leaves them to just have a little bit of free reign. Talking of Yas, he's that loose player, he's going to stack up. The pings are coming through, they have an idea, and look at the way they've set up the hold there. It's above, it's below, and it's that connector between the pair of them.
This is a round that started so well and is just looking to end so badly, isn't it? 3 versus 2 in favour of Damwon Kia. Redux looking to push in. How much info has he got? That's the big question. He's going to chuck the lifeline out. It isn't going to hit its mark. Yas is pretty much a live red ping here, and we know that Redux only 1 or 2 bullets at most, but Redux makes it happen, takes the challenge over onto Yas, hits the headshot, can now look to try and push on through. He's only moments away from being wallbanged realistically, and with the positioning of the diffuser, MIBR have got no choice but to fully commit and fully push. Redux, 3 kills, can he make it 4? Rin going to be holding from above. He's got 15 seconds to try and hold on here. Pre-fires onto 1, hits onto Redux. It's a 1 versus 1 in a vertical angle. The diffuser has now been recovered as Rin is going to further miss. He can jump over. He can try and deny this. Hits the reload on the way. What a play by Rin. That was beautiful stuff. Holding upstairs inside a VIP. Flies himself over the top rope and a red ping for the pre-fire.
It was the connection that you needed to hit there at that point. It was everything you needed them to do, and that's that cool, that's that calm, and that's that DWG KIA, the second set of defenses we saw where they weren't being too over-aggressive. It was almost brilliant by MIBR, the pullback. As I said, time was on their side and they made sure it counted. They structured themselves to take the isolated players, digging the fight through and getting themselves into that position, but that verticality. Remember all of the times I said, hey, MIBR, hold on to your verticality a little bit better on your defenses. This is why. This is what it offers you on Coastline. It was a single player with an angle and a punch, and it was how it sort of locked itself in.
It's almost like MIBR tried to do the DWG KIA and sort of forgot the step of get the diffuser down. And I don't want to give Fleetbox too much of a hard time, but he was inside for a very long time and there was a big potential for him to get the plant down. If not there, he could have got it down elsewhere. And you've just got to question, why commit if you're not going to try and plant? Why commit if you're just going to try and bait out? Especially when you don't take that top floor. So, a strange round, a missed opportunity, but DWG KIA get themselves 1 round closer here. They're 2 rounds away from closing out the series, realistically. This is a 5-2. It could be over in the next 15 minutes. No problem whatsoever. And you've just got to wonder if that's really what MIBR deserve at this point. I think based off how they've played on Coastline, it's probably what they deserve. They haven't played very well. We've got a lack of kills, distinctly top to bottom. Redux the only player that's above 4, sitting on 8 and 6. So, I mean, really, realistically, what are you gonna do with it? You've got to come up with something fundamentally different here. And the confidence from DWG KIA is brimming round after round, time after time, and especially with clutches like that.
Yes waits patiently towards the double door for any approach that might come through. It's DWG KIA now playing the guessing game of where are they, but to be honest, it was revealed to them a little bit earlier by the fact they had the diffuser, because suddenly you have the center point of everybody's attention and focus. You can actually rebuild, restructure, and it almost was taken away from them, but almost isn't all the way. 5-2. Still have a heck of a difference to go, and DWG KIA in that 1 round have been able to get a 50% success rate compared to the previous 2 rounds that MIBR managed themselves. 1 more, and it's map point and series point, and that's the big danger looming over it. This is MIBR's chance to try and claw a point. If DWG KIA take this map, then that's a full 6 points. That is such a big opener on the 2 days.
It's going to likely put them in a very unique position, I think, inside of their group. You know, 6 points, it's really massive, and it pretty much guarantees that you're going to be getting out in a very preferential seed as well. So very much so, there's a lot riding on these next couple of rounds, and opening up with a kill onto Raps isn't a bad way to kick things off. Coated is going to be the next casualty, as Fowls is going to be there with the trade, but Yas playing close inside of the garden, a bit of an unknown factor at the moment. Lukid with the shutdown onto Wooman as Redux is looking to pre-fire and make the very most of that LMG, but he didn't account for Rin hiding on upstairs. A couple of good rounds back to back, and it's now going to be Rin left to do it all. Swings the corner, could find 1, potentially 2. Didn't have the information. We can see already just how that one goes. Tactical timeout being called there. No time at all being wasted. As soon as we flicked onto the cameras there for MIBR, it was a big T sign. Take a time out. We need to really get ahead of this one. Big chance of a comeback here for MIBR, but this is where it starts. I think as soon as you let DWG KIA get themselves onto 6 rounds, that's when things start to become very tricky indeed. As it stands, MIBR are only 2 rounds behind.
Only 2 rounds. It's not a big difference, and you're on your attack on Coastline as well. It's something that you can very quickly cover that gap on. If you want to try and dive yourself into this fight a little bit more, this is how you do it. This is how you start to structure it round by round, and from that point onwards, you know, it's that sort of consistent lockdown. Hooker and billiards. Hooker and billiards and a bit of a conversation is where we're going to head to next. Time to talk and a time for MIBR to sort of get themselves righted and reignited and drive themselves towards, I guess, those 2 rounds. Because as you said, it's not a big difference, but there's a lot of pressure if you suddenly find yourself on series point, and what you've got to do is be the ones that set the pace to ensure it doesn't quite get there.
I think especially when DWG KIA get that opportunity to have a chat as well now, and they can just run through, right, what's gone well in this game? Well, we've done a really good job of taking people by surprise. We've done a really good job of playing into this see an opportunity, take the opportunity mindset. Now that they're on the defense, it's not necessarily as easy to do that, and they're kind of waiting for MIBR to mess up, which they have done a couple of times. So there is opportunity there for them, but equally, they get a chance to talk, they get a chance to figure things out. As we head now at the end of the timeout, going to be getting ourselves back into the game. How effective was that chat? How much is that going to really impact here what MIBR are capable of doing? Site, going to be hooker and billiards. Move ourselves back on into the meat and the bones of this round. Someone that's definitely deserving of a shout out at this point, Fluke, has got to be Woogie Man. You think about his contribution over on Chalet, it was fantastic. Ended up with 14 kills, I think it was, 12 kills, something in that sort of ballpark. But it was equally like 10 deaths.
You're telling me?
Look at him now.
You're telling me MVP of day 1?
Well, MVP of day 1, right, comes into the first map and does okay. So he gets a lot of kills, but he also dies a lot of times. This time it's night and day different. He just obviously needed that as a little bit of a warm-up, and he's back on his day 1 form because he's currently 11-3 inside of this one, by far and away the highest contributor in terms of KD, and you just got a feeling that that isn't going to slow down anytime soon.
You're telling me MVP of the player day 1 is still doing it on day 2? Honestly.
Well, he's doing it on map 2 of day 2.
It's terrifying though, isn't it?
1.
Because every tournament has a hop-off player, and it used to be Yas. And it might still be Yas. It's day 2 of a long tournament. However, the fact that he's been able to put in these performances so consistently already in this short space of time across these opening best of 3s, as an addendum to the work that Yas and Rin can do, as well as the clutch potential of Coated and Katsang that we've seen, it's a scarier, stronger DWG KIA. It's a DWG KIA that's firing on even more cylinders than the many they've fired on throughout this year. But it's not over yet. We've still got time. We've still got a lot of siege potentially ahead of us, and it's going to start here. The pressure from the Roteros as they see if they can sneak their way into all the destruction on the doorway of Hookah. They have some of that taken care of, but Coated's going to have to play a dangerous game of pop-up defense now as he tries to stop any drones that might get too close to his shield. And, well, that mute jammer is going to buy him some safety, but with a soft wall on the either side, it just takes 2 to be able to entirely circumvent that.
A little bit of Hibana action here from Felipox, trying to not only burn those laser gates, but also potentially remove the safety from the player that's going to try and sit on the top of those cool vibe stairs. A scuffed rotation. Bit of a lackluster setup there isn't going to make things easy now for Coated, especially with how precise you've got to be with your movements in that location. Rotero drone likely to follow things up here and further remove the player, potentially a nade from above as well, as Fleepox is going to start to further this disruption and destruction. All looking to open up now further angles.
Well, there's a handful of ex-Kairos that are thrown to the wind, easily popped off, and with a minute left, they still have time to go back to the drawing board, but
Bomb located by
well, there's still drawing board to be drawn on with every single player still up. Probably the longest that we've had all 10 faces on the board. They haven't quite been able to find each other yet, and at this point you're wondering if MIBR are going to be able to pull off the same tricks that DWG KIA are, or they're just a little bit more stuck because they've tried to burn utility. They're not hiding their presence, MIBR here. They just haven't quite been able to get the lock in. A grenade is eaten by an ADS on the far side. They find Woogieman underneath, but there's nobody there to try and drop him. They've put the pressure onto Hookah, but there's nobody to try and get through on the back of it. It's different to DWG KIA's approach, in that DWG KIA sort of suddenly burst their way in, and we got to have that from MIBR, and here it might come. There's 2 kills. kills. There's at least one back, but the smoke canister pushes them into a trickier situation. How has he escaped that? How has he done that? Coated digs himself in. It's suddenly a 2 versus 1 versus 1, a slip away. He's trying to hop to a bit of safety. He's behind you. Do you hear it? No, he slips out of the way! Damwon Kia! The tail is riddled with bullets, but the body survives, and they are on series point.
What a way to get through to series point as well. Coated. Let's start calling him Goated Fluke. That was incredible. Laid down on the floor, the off angle. You never expect anyone to be playing there. It's perfect shotgun angle for him to use. The smokes came out well. And then the ring around the rosy for the 1v1. You've got to feel sorry for Raps. I mean, that is just heartbreaking stuff. A little bit of information, a little bit of a sound cue. He's working off instinct at that point. You've just got to go with your gut and go with that feeling or whatever that last call out was or would be. And it just wasn't quite enough. Hiding away, letting the time do the rest. Gets it over the line. Damwon Kia, match and series point. What feels like already on Coastline. We haven't seen a lot of this map at all just yet. We're only now getting into round number 10. But there's potential for it to be all over inside of the next 3 or so minutes. Which I think for MIBR is going to be a little bit of a blow. And they need to try and come up with something here and now, because everything that they're doing so far has been met with so much resistance.
Now, this is obviously the site where things sort of started, came to a bit of a boil, and was not a blowout. It was a 1 versus 1 with dying seconds left, but you're sort of looking at how MIBR can shape that. Because when the push comes to the shove, they're doing a lot. It's just not enough. And just is such a delicate balance. They have the ability to have these conversations. They have the ability to have these moments of, we can piece this together, we can put the pressure on this end instead, and suddenly they're being a little bit decisive and dicey on the site. But otherwise, it's that worrying window again. It's that 10-second difference that we saw on a couple of rounds of Chalet, where they're just losing it out elsewhere. But that was the difference maker on that round. That was the chance of an MIBR round win, the 1 versus 1 before as well. Another 10 seconds. I'm not going to say it would have been as definite, but it would have been a more precise battle for him to be able to focus on the fight rather than having to stick the plan. 10 seconds is all they need, but they're the only ones that can try and find it.
You can almost feel the weight of this round with how MIBR are trying to approach it. There's going to be a lot of time spent in the drones. Philippox, Raps, Fowls, Redux, every single person at the moment is in a drone aside from Lukid. And that's not unusual. You know, Lukid's the entry. He's going to be trying to get those kills, but he's not even in yet because the call is so unclear and it's so much pressure on that initial engagement. Katsang doing his best to just keep everybody at bay inside of Sunrise. A couple of cursory shots towards the window is all that it is going to take. And Lukid takes a long time for the rotation, worried about the potential run out, not wanting to leave anything to chance here.
Katsang's a little bit skittish. He's moving around, and there's almost the entry. Woogieman is the first one to find a fight. Able to slip away from the double door, not quite get the drone, but waits for the swing to come round. Because it's open behind him, it means he cannot really sit in that corner. As you saw, Fools was setting themselves up to try and get the stack on the backside. There's a drone coming over from Luggage as well. They're dedicated to fishing out this single player, but nothing is otherwise coming into his favor as of yet. So he pulls out. Takes himself to the safety of White Stairs, gives himself a little bit more space to work with before he's entirely trapped in a corner, and at least he knows if a fight is going to come from White Stairs or not.
All this time wasting is great for Damwon Kia as well, because although they're being pushed ever so slightly into different positions, it's not anything that's causing them too much harm, and there's so much option for rotation. Pretty much the entire west side of the map is clear at the moment. A couple of kills are going to trade on through. Lukid finds one. Rin is there when it matters, and Coated makes that Toxic Babe canister hit.
Well, there is Redux right in the middle, is able to get that crossfire. 30 seconds to work with. They have some time, and Coated has a little bit of a ring around the rosies. Other side of a soft wall. Lukid has no idea, though. There's a swing, and there's a spray. And it is DK that end up a little bit above. There's a triple for Coated. He's looking for one more. And it's a Rin that locks it out. It's Damwon Kia to take the second series of theirs. It is another 2-0, another 3 points, another APAC team falling to the Koreans, and another APAC success.
What a result there for Damwon Kia. 7 rounds to 3 on Coastline. You can't really ask for much more than that. It wasn't quite a stomp. Could have been a 7-2, as we joked a couple of times, but probably could have been a 7-1. But they really played exceptionally well there. I think that they played into MIBR's playstyle so well. That was the thing that really stood out for me. They took advantage on their attacks. Coastline is a map that we know can be fairly attacker-sided. There's a lot of opportunity there for attackers. That much is known at this point. But the way that they were able to directly pinpoint what it was about MIBR's defense that was so attackable, and it is that they often just leave one player on site. And they were straight in. Plants going down in the first couple of rounds very early on, and from that point onwards it was almost a mental game. It was a bit of a snowball effect.
I think the thing that we got there from MIBR on Chalet was great. There's a lot to be worked on, and it was their first game of the tournament. A lot of teams had shaky first days. But if anything, the weird thing that we're getting now is eyes on DWG KIA. They came in as favourites for a lot of people because of the tournaments that they'd had, but not everybody had them written as winners for SI yet. However, what they're doing is taking everybody else's notebook that's a fan of Team 1 and MIBR and maybe a lot of other teams and just kind of penciling in their name alongside that #1 spot as well. It has been good on several different levels, from everything from how to adapt to the play that's being put against them, losing and then pulling back with the entry, which maybe they need to work on, but also keeping a cool head, which on this, the grandest stage, their first time here fighting for this, well, I guess it's just a matter of seeing how we progress. That was all for this on the first game on the B stream. We're going to a bit of a break, and then our analysts will break that all down for you.